executive orders coming out that first week that the presidential administration changed, and we were filling our position at the same time. The following week, we were still filling the position and monitoring the activity at the federal level. Obviously, as we've seen, changing and changing rapidly. The 28th was the day of the Finance Committee. That was also the day that the portal for federal funding was frozen. Frozen from getting those funds. So Mike and I came and we talked about the concerns that we had and the advice to pause the position that we filling that position that we given the mayor, that we just wait and see what was going on with this and try to figure some stuff out. Access was restored the next day, but there's still concern because it was restored, but it was certainly made clear that the emphasis that had led to it being frozen was still going to be taking place, and we're going to be figuring some things like that. Between beginning last week and this week, lots of meetings, lots of reading, lots of reading. There's legal challenges, the executive orders, and collaborating with our state partners, other local government, practice groups, AWC, PSRC, and getting our head around what's going on and what we can do and what we need, information that we need. So, from what I can share is that the most targeted practices for the federal administration appear to be using protected characteristics in employment actions. And I give some examples of what that can include, like quotas, hybrid for hiring, diversity targets, those kind of practices that aim to lift or elevate a protected class level of playing field in that way. Sure.
Just really briefly, we still have federal protected classes, and I'd love to.
We have state
right
classes as well.
But our state's rights are different than the federal rights. And I just would love to make sure that that is understood, that we still have federal protected classes.
Absolutely.
All of the
yes. And I think that can't be said enough. That equal opportunity, anti-discrimination, all of those things are still alive and well and not under threat. What is under threat is what I think everyone recalls. It was a common infographic used to explain equity and equality involving people looking over a fence.
With the milk crates.
And equity was giving people what they need. Remember that? And how it was different. Those are the practices I think that are most targeted, because it is being it was based on protected characteristics. And so if it's an action that levels the playing field, then if, for example, removing the fence and that infographic, changing the fence where everyone can see over it, that's something that levels the playing field. If it's considered a lift, those are the practices that the federal government is targeting. Okay. And so at this point, I don't think that identity neutral practices that remove bias from the workplace and create equal opportunity are going to be a problem, even under this administration. And the city has been engaging in those practices. And so I'll give you some examples, and these things are still being done. They're not being rolled back. They're not being solved at all. So the city made an effort 4 years ago to lessen the chances of discrimination in our hiring practices. One of the things was being more deliberate in where we recruited candidates. We cast a much wider net so that it wasn't just word of mouth. It wasn't just because I know someone at the city. We wanted to be really intentional about making sure that we cast a really wide net. We also started redacting employment applications to remove identifiers that might give rise to someone making an unfair assessment of that person based on the characteristics that they can kind of glean from an application. We also review job descriptions to make sure that we're not requiring college degrees where they're not necessary for the job, because that's been a barrier for some people. And we've also really standardized our review processes, interview processes. Some of you have been involved in our interview panels. There's generally very set questions that are asked of all the candidates, and the questions kind of go in the same order. And we try to stick to topics. We have usually a little bit of a training beforehand to talk about what you're not going to ask people. And those are practices that are still going to happen and are not, in my view, in any way threatened by the actions that are taking place with the federal government. They really appear to be targeted at equity practices that lift a candidate or an employee up, and that lift is happening based on some personal characteristic.
As of today.
As a characteristic?
As of today.
Right. Well, recently. I will say that in a lot of ways, the executive orders are really, it really started with the Supreme Court case in 2023 about student admission. And that's when there was a big shift of what the federal government was looking at in terms of what is discrimination and what is not, and focusing more on individual characteristics. And so even though that case dealt with college admissions, there was scholars and everyone knew that it was going to, it was tipping the hand of where the Supreme Court was going to be going with other chapters of the election. And it has in the last couple of years. So going back to what we're doing, as you might recall, all of our practices internally were reviewed last year. We got a clean bill of health. In fact, really stellar, which is bill of health with WCIE to show that we're complying with best practices and not violating any federal laws or state laws. And we're going to continue to monitor that and make sure that, and that's just part of our job, is what we're always doing. We're always trying to make sure that, you know, if there's discrimination, that it's identified and you can eliminate it. If there's and supporting everyone with equal opportunity and protecting social rights. So then that's going to change. So the funding that's threatened, some of you have seen Mike Riley's memo that went out earlier. It's on the back here again. The most immediate facing are what's called grant certification. I saw for the first time today, not for a city grant, but one I saw online. It was a 20+25 award contract that had already included language that required grant recipients to agree that they comply in all respects with the federal anti-immigration laws and certify they don't operate any programs promoting DEI that violate any federal anti-immigration. And so that's likely
That's
to
easier.
Anti-discrimination law?
Right. And
Okay.
so the Department of
That's fine.
Justice interpretation is likely going to be in line with what I was talking about with those programs that I guess generally speaking, while there may be some nuances, a lot of people hear equity and they think of giving a lift, and they hear equality and they think level playing field. Right? But it seems like I don't know that that nuance is going to be an option to really elucidate this right now. We'll see. When I saw
Job description. I guess I might be cutting to the chase, so tell me if we're going to discuss this later. I think the most angst is the community's angst is around the creation of the position that actually starts diversity and is there any discussion going on about updating that job description with the same type of intent, but not using wording that
Right.
would trigger it?
So those are going to be
Am I
conversations.
cutting to the chase?
We'll get there.
Okay.
But yeah, let me just get there.
They're looking
Yeah,
out. They're
yeah.
looking out for that basically. For
Yeah.
rebranding.
So the other thing is kind of what's everyone's role here? What's Mike and I's role? What's your role? What's the mayor's role? What's the community's role? And this is tough. This is a tough situation, right? No one wants to be here. We were really excited about what we were doing.
We were so excited. We were so
You guys
excited,
in
Kylie.
there with me, and
Yeah.
this isn't this isn't like fun stuff or anything. And I hope you guys understand that this isn't like I'm like happy to be having these discussions or anything like that. The mayor, chief executive.
There.
and-
The guy in the blue shirt.
That guy. That guy over there.
So he is the chief executive administrative officer. You guys know this. This is just more kind of I guess as a reminder. I advise the mayor and council. Mike also does, although as you guys have all noticed, he's like he reports to the mayor, but it's Mike and I, we have very similar roles in that we have to make sure that you guys get information. And in this instance, things were happening really fast. And one of the concerns is, like I said, that if you have programs that have equity in them, that you're not going to get a chance to explain that you're not engaging in practices that violate federal law, that you're going to have, it's going to be presumed that you're doing practices that lift instead of level. And I know I keep saying that, but I'm just trying to.
Who's assuming that?
Who's assuming?
Who's assuming that?
Federal government in there.
Federal and then.
Yeah, so it's
And
gonna
their
be
lack
the
of sight
Department of
insight.
Justice. It could be also whoever's administering the grant, and we'll get to that in a second. So we're gonna get, our grants are gonna have a certification for provision
Yeah.
that says.
It's
do you-
required.
Mhm.
that
It's
says-
newly required.
Yes, although there have been similar requirements in
This,
this.
like it used to be, you'd have to certify that you're following all like
There's always
discrimination stuff, and they're using that same tool to push this.
To
I see it.
discriminate, I mean,
Michael.
Right.
Yeah, discriminate, and their mind can go both ways.
Right, but it goes both ways, and so if you are doing any of these practices that were designed to combat discrimination of race, that you are instead under federal law discrimination. Does everyone understand that? It seems
Yes.
backwards, but that's.
Well,
Yes.
not really. Like you read the quote, do not operate any programs promoting DEI that violate any applicable federal anti-discrimination
Well,
laws.
that's what he's put in place.
But
Well, no.
so can I ask a question, a clarifying question? And maybe you don't have this information, but something that I understand is happening is there are people who are going through grant applications and looking for keywords, including the term equity, and bias and discrimination, and they're looking for these keywords. And because they don't have the time to really delve into the content, it's being
It's
kind of,
certainly a fear, right? And so the fear is that if you
Thank
have, if you're using words like equity, that
Right.
it's going to be difficult to certify this, to sign it. So someone's going to have to certify, and another day we'll talk about what that means. But
we certify, right?
No,
They
we
don't
don't.
certify.
no,
So who certifies?
usually it's
Both our names go on it, signed document,
Right.
and there's a future discussion of what we believe that
we
looks
as in
like.
Bremerton.
You mean we administration,
So-
we the city.
We, the city.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
certify with the federal government.
Right.
So this order applies to federal contractors and subcontractors.
Mm-hmm.
When we receive a grant, do we then become a subcontractor?
we're a grant recipient and then
Yeah.
a contract. Yeah. So anyway, our job is to keep you advised. The mayor's job is also to keep you advised. And if he's not doing it, it's our job to do it. I mean, but in this instance, the pause, although, like I said, we were really excited about this program. We felt that it was important to give council a chance to hear the reasons for the pause and that we're gathering more information. If the council did not want to pause, you don't have to. You can direct the administration to move forward, and I talk about that in there some too. And That's just sort of the ground rules of like what everyone's role is on this. And so, right now, next steps, we're gonna continue to gather information and collaborate with, other cities, AWC, definitely the city. I'm a member of IMLA, which is the international, it's mostly US, and Canada's in there too, but mostly a Municipal Lawyers Association. They're doing groups all the time. And trying to get up-to-date information on how everyone's handling this. And there's folks that are under contract with grants, folks that are trying to get under contract with grants, folks that have existing programs, folks that don't have existing programs. We were just in an unusual spot in that we were hiring on a position and wanted to pause and get them more information before we eventually brought someone on and made that step.
Can you tell us a little bit about the idea of that, like that I was saying before, they're looking out for rebranding? Can you talk
Sure,
to
I
us
can
and
talk about
address
that.
that for us?
I'm happy to.
Publicly.
So one of the things in what you'll notice in here is doing a lot of this stuff. I mean, like as far as the HR practices, right? So a lot of agencies are rolling this into their human resources departments for the internal aspect, right? The part as far as external, I've heard today terms like fairness, civil rights, anti-discrimination, community engagement, those kind of things. And so,
Community
right,
engagement
we have that in our.
is a buzzword now?
No.
Is
She's
it?
talking
Oh.
about rebranding. Like how-
Okay.
So, but
using
you're giving us
community
terms that are
engagement.
rebrands,
Great.
but one of the fears was they're looking out for
They are. They
rebranding.
actually put it in the memo that they
Right.
are looking for that. And so, but it's, I do want to make it clear that some people are seeing this as like, if you don't have DEI, then you don't have protections against, anti-discrimination, you don't have any anti-discrimination or any equal opportunity and stuff. And so all those things have been, we weren't looking to hire a person, really for those. I mean, we've been doing those things in compliance with federal law.
Really hoping to have somebody for communications, I
Right.
mean, public engagement.
I think that there was a lot of, there was so much excitement, right? And so many ideas about what this person might be able to do, but you're correct. So community engagement is certainly.
Communications manager, that'd be handy.
Yeah, so one of the concerns obviously is that, the community really came out in support of this position, and I think a lot of
And
them.
continues
And
to.
continues to, and I think a
Yes.
lot of them have the expectation that this is equity work in the, I guess, traditional sense. And if it's not going to be that, then is that, what do we do about that? You know what I'm saying? Or if it is gonna be, what are we gonna do?
Well,
I've talked a lot, haven't I?
So are we done with the presentation?
Mike, do you have anything?
Just to add with the memo that we reissued was what went out in press release with the council saw. Then what we've done on, just in addition to, on the next page, I wanted to highlight some of with the community development program really serves a lot of, things we're talking about here. And just with the 10-year, kind of a 10-year snapshot of the different projects that community is funded, just to give the public some insights, YWCA, some of our preschool best program, just kind of capture the 10-year. Yeah, Meals on Wheels, Food Line, a lot of ADA, accessible playground projects. Just wanted to highlight kind of what our community development program has done over the last decade. Because that is a fully federally funded project, and we want to make sure we gave the community as much information as possible. See where it goes federal dollars. So that was the only addition to the memo that went out previously.
So is it the stuff after the hash mark?
After the hash mark, yes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Riley. So, Ms. Fennell, is what you're telling the council before I open up to questions is right now, I'm seeing under next steps. Are you basically saying just, we're gonna gather more information and you recommend us not making any rash decisions until we get more information? Is that the guidance that we're getting? Just hang on.
We did make the
What is your recommendation?
Yeah, what's your?
At this point is that, there's so much going on that we continue to gather information. I can give you better information on which to make a decision. This isn't something we have to figure out ourselves, and that I think that everyone is concerned. They don't look at these programs; they're fantastic programs, and if there's a way that we can continue doing the work that we've been doing, and quite a lot of ideas, not a lot of the ideas that people had about this position, I've even contemplated in these orders. Does that make sense? Like community engagement, doing better outreach, that kind of thing. It's not even in there. They're more concerned about stuff that I don't know that we were even
Right.
planning on doing. And so,
Right.
but I will say it's not wrong that a lot of folks think that if you have equity programs, that those are what that program is about. Does that make sense?
So
So-
what is the recommendation of the Attorney General?
Eric's trying to run.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so hang on. So, all right, that concludes the presentation, and I don't want to spend the next hour on this. So we're just gonna open up for like 10 minutes at the most of question and answers.
Mhm.
And then we're gonna move on to our agenda. Go ahead, Anna.
Thanks, Eric. So what's does the has the AG of Washington, Nick Brown, issued a statement?
Oh, he has issued statements. And I had a chance to see him speak actually in April.
No, I mean, like, recently.
Yeah, no, I think that,
I'm sorry, that was a bad question. Has he recommended that, because I don't know any other cities that have paused their DEI programs. Or I just haven't read about them in the state of
what was
Washington.
that?
Have they?
I just wanted to say that we don't have a DEI program. What we did was we just held off on it. And to be honest, the mayor holding off on it allowed us to make the decision whether to move forward or not. If he had moved forward and then this council body felt, how dare you do that without talking to us in light of all this stuff? So a pause is literally just a pause to figure this out. But that's that.
Thanks, Mike.
I want to clarify something else that you just said.
Okay,
yeah,
because I have one
no,
follow-up.
Yeah, the most thing was that we don't have a DEI program. We were about to launch it, and then it was like, well, it is true. It is true. Because we paused, we did not pause the DEI program. We paused hiring of a candidate.
Right.
We didn't pause the program. The program's chugging along however it always has. But we paused hiring a person because why jump into it and have it be a disaster when we could take a moment, take a beat, and figure out the right way to move forward?
Okay,
That
thank you.
wasn't
Let me
the
just
easy.
That
ask.
wasn't- that
So
was a follow-up
Anna's got the floor, and then
Okay.
Jane and
Thanks.
Jennifer.
And I wish it had been we, but in fact it was not. My second question is, my second and final, because I know everybody else needs time, is, why do we have to do this in such a rush? I don't, as I say, I don't see any other cities
What round?
rush. Like the mayor, you
January
felt
28th.
such urgency that you spoke to the Kids Have Sun before you spoke to us. So that seems like a rush.
So the rush, I guess, the pause on the hiring was was literally just that we had just done interviews. And whether we extended an offer or not, we wanted to advise the council what the risk was of pursuing, like filling the position and moving forward.
Okay, I have many more questions, but I understand Eric's limiting it, so I'll stop.
Sure.
Thank you.
Jane.
I guess where most of the heartburn in the community is because the mayor was quoted as saying we're getting rid of the DEI position and initiatives, that we're putting a pause on it. Almost everything we do is in our hiring processes and the way we interact with each other as employers or employees is trying to make things an equal playing field. So we have only paused, or the mayor and the administration has paused the hiring of this person, but we certainly haven't paused all DEI initiatives in the city.
I didn't say we did.
Well, that's what the mayor was quoted as in the Kitsap Sun. And that's why we've gotten, 40 letters and people calling me and texting me, and I'm sure they're contacting everybody else.
And that's
Also
why,
the
and-
Seattle Times.
Oh,
And
yeah,
they're
the
not
Seattle
warm
Times.
letters either.
But the thing is, if we do anything that the administration is in disagreement with, you're not gonna represent council's interests.
what do you mean?
Well, like for instance, when,
If you want to pass an ordinance to push forward, I'll write it. Yeah.
well, there's other
Yeah.
there's other ordinances that we asked to be enforced, and we were told that that the city attorney's office wasn't gonna support council, that we had to get our own attorney.
Under what? Which one?
The Beaver Dam,
What?
the Beaver Dam ordinance. So we can talk about that later if you want, but you guys clearly said that we would have to, that the city attorney's office would not support city council in that.
To
Yes, it
protecting the
is.
beaver.
It is.
You
otter
said that
wetland.
she would hire,
I
we would have
think
to hire our
I
own
think- I'm
lawyers.
sorry. Okay. I think I know which one you're talking about. Yeah, so there are times where our office will pursue an enforcement action. Because, well,
It's not the enforcement action, it's the point that the city attorney's office, if administration wants to go in one way and council feels we should be going another way, that you're gonna support administration.
I can give you several
Yeah.
examples, Jane, right now that is not the case.
That's something that now we're straying off. And
Right,
I
okay.
agree that that's not, in my opinion, that's not factual. And it's written in our charter that the city attorney represents both of us. And I've seen it
Yeah.
work different ways during my history in the
Right.
city.
Right.
And I like, and you have total right to defend yourself if you'd like to, but I'd like us just kind of focus on, this was an information only briefing. And we're still gonna do our council meeting. I'm sorry if we're gonna limit this. I'm not spending the next 5 hours discussing this.
No problem.
Because I really do believe that we need to have more information come forward as far as what this administration, I mean, the Trump administration is gonna unravel, and it's not a good idea to come up with any policy. Right now, we should just be listening on the information. So, Jane, you had the floor,
I'm done.
Okay.
And thank you, Eric.
Okay.
That was your opinion as an individual council member and not representing council, just to be clear. I'd like to find out if there's anybody else who's interested in doing what the mayor has suggested and Kylie has offered, which is an ordinance directing the mayor to pursue the DEI position and offering. Is there anybody else who's interested in this ordinance? Okay, then I don't know why, then I don't know why we're.
I have a question. So,
Okay.
hang on, then it's, are you done, John?
So, my point in that is, I mean, we can sit and we can pick on each other a little bit, but it's not gonna, I just, if we're not gonna take action, then I don't know what the point of hashing it out is. I know my opinion and I know what the constituents have asked me. And I believe we should have an ordinance directing administration to hire for this position. I understand the pause. It would be horribly heartbreaking to have somebody move from another state or another country, depending on who we chose, right? To come to our town and then be told, we don't have a position for you any longer. Which is what's at stake when we have somebody who we're offering a position who isn't necessarily local. So it's also really important. These programs, these financial programs are equity in action. And I don't want to risk losing them either. I would absolutely support an ordinance directing administration. If y'all wanted to do that, if there were 3 other people, if council consensus went with that. But I would just like to focus on moving forward with what we can do. That's it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. So, Mike, do you know what the next grant certification that's coming down the pipeline is?
Yeah.
Like, how often are these? What's the
CBG,
timeline?
I believe in
Like,
March, we'll get we believe the funding letter and see if we're anticipating to see what language is in the document.
Yeah, I saw the raise, which is now Bill's,
You have to call Bill.
document today and looked at that. We didn't get, that's not one of
No, that's not something we received, but
we received, but I saw it, online. So we expect it to, our first one to be CDBG, and so we're gonna
a couple weeks or so, or
Couple
early March, okay. Thanks, that helps.
Yeah.
And then just for now, yeah, and I think, happy to talk on along with you moving forward. Just the only other comment was, I know Mayor and I were both on Puget Sound Regional Council call on Thursday morning. I'm not sure if you made that one too, Mike, although.
I got the notes from
You
it.
did, okay, yeah. And so I forwarded the summary to all of council, and it was a good call with obviously PSRC, KRCC, AWC, National League of Cities, Governor's Office, and both of our senators were on there. And my takeaway from it was most of the concern is not necessarily about the existing funding, but appreciate the funding certs here. It was really future funding. Don't expect anything from this federal administration that pertains to climate change or green energy or equity, but that the existing funds on a very high level, my takeaway from that conversation was that they're mostly secured. So anyway, just I think folks
Thank you.
can
I appreciate
rewatch that or look at the notes as well.
Okay, anyone else that hasn't spoken on this? Denise, go ahead.
No, I've spoken under my breath. Process is important. And especially when we're talking about a diversity, equity, and inclusion, the process itself did not support those values. And that concerns me. You're saying that you advised the mayor. Nowhere in here does it acknowledge that the mayor made the decision. But that was like 2 months ago or 2 weeks ago. It was on the 28th.
Right.
And here we are on the 14th. And this was the first time we've been able to, maybe communication through the council president, maybe a phone call with the council president. And then he is responsible for alerting council as soon as possible. So we don't again
Mike McCullough can advise the full
read it in the
process
text. It's that done.
Yeah, so, but yeah, I can add it real fast. We did reach out directly to the council president and then actually on the same day, sat in a committee meeting and briefed the committee the day this all was going. We were working through this before the newspaper article came. So the committee was briefed, 3 council members. The council president was briefed.
And then I called the interview.
And that a pause would be
Yes.
put on the
We
position.
discussing
Okay.
the risk.
Yes.
And that never got to the rest of
And we
council.
understand
That's
I
the
think
problem.
unfortunately it might have gotten to everyone but you. Now that
I didn't get it.
Who's on
Okay.
finance?
I'm on finance and it wasn't said that we're putting a pause on
Right.
DEI position and
Did not get
initiatives.
into the individual
Did not
positions.
say that.
We discussed being conservative, what we were trying to figure out, what was happening, that the federal funding portals were frozen. The next day, I reached out to the council president and also to the finance chair, newly elected finance chair, let them know that's been rescinded. The question was asked, does that change anything? I said, there was follow-up from the executive office, the president's office saying, they're removing the hold, that those same principles would still be, the review would still take place.
I just want to clarify that the finance committee's, I think consensus was on that Tuesday to not make any rash decisions. In fact, to not put a pause on anything at the moment, to see how
Okay.
it plays out. And then sure enough, it was the next day that the order was rescinded and things have been changing since.
And Michael and I received notice, right? We talked to Kylie. Kylie said that there would probably have to be a pause because we were locked out of the portal. And I want to just kind of just bring it, honestly, we were just about to hire somebody and I really understand the need to stop it in its tracks right when it was, because we were getting ready to hire somebody. And then all of these executive orders were coming through, the portal was closed. It wasn't until after the article came out that the portal was even open, or after the article was written. It was around the same time the article came out that the portal was open again.
No, I
Okay.
believe there was quite a period of time between that Wednesday when the order was rescinded and the portals unfrozen
Okay.
before the article came out.
And then our council president did know, and made the decision to hold on to the information, to gatekeep it in a sense. So,
There's a difference between the position.
Talk about throwing someone under the bus. You know what? I like to remind everyone of the council rules and procedures where you have a complaint about another council member. In my
apologies.
case, you bring it up to the council vice president. We don't discuss this out in the open, and this practice needs to stop starting right now. All these snarky remarks. So I'm going to suggest we're done with this topic. Thank you for the information briefing. And now I'm going to move on to item B1, the purchase of 2025 excess workers' compensation insurance, safety and casualty.
Yeah, I'd love to chat with you one-on-one about this.
Ms. Fulmer and Ms. Fennell.
Yeah, my seat. Thank you very much.
It's
Thanks for
Fennel.
working it out.
You've given up on that? Your spirit is broken?
It's hard for her.
I think if you said like funnel instead of kennel, I think that would help people more.
Ms. Fulmer, the floor is yours.
Hi there. So I'm here for the annual renewal of the excess workers' compensation for 2025. We went out and we got 2 bids, one from Midwest, which was our current insurer, and one from Safety National. Safety National came back matching our self-insured retentions. And we decided to bind with them, and then we're coming to council for approval. So they matched our self-insured retentions and everything else. I know that on the details of coverage, there's those 0 that are red. Those were clarified that they will, match our previous policy. So pretty much the only changes that we did not renew with our prior insurer, Midwest. Anything else?
This went through public safety.
Oh, yeah.
Was discussed.
To public safety and any comments or questions?
No, it was explained thoroughly. It seemed like what we all go through when we're shopping for insurance, trying to keep that deductible down and yeah.
And also,
And a warning that it probably won't last.
Yeah, I did give that.
nothing
one.
lasts taken. I'd also like to just bring to council's attention the fact that this new company also has a better rating with AM Best.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Not nothing.
Any other questions or comments from the council? How do we treat this item?
Consent.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty. Thank you.
Okay, the next item is conservation grant agreement with Puget Sound Energy for LED retrofit phase 3 and 4, otherwise known as how do we spend $1.98?
So I'm bringing to you tonight, they have 2 grants, one for phase 3 and one for phase 4. They've been completed through the PSE LED light conversion. Get your approval on that. They're currently working on 5, 6, and phase 7 out of 15.
Thank you. And first of all, Mr. Moore, have you presented before the
This
council?
is my very first time other than
Right.
Public Works.
Dressed for the meeting.
And have you been a longtime city employee or
I've been
recent?
here since April 29th of 2024.
Okay, welcome. And I said $1.98 or something. It's, for the record, it's $1.92. That's gonna cost us for 2 phases of LED lights.
The grants were $1,863
Okay,
each.
excellent. And now was this brought forth before Public Works? Jane?
Are you saying phase 4 is done? Because I live in phase 4 and it's not done.
2 of the phases got split prior to my being here.
Okay, so it's the 4th one, not area 4.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a map that I attached, I believe, in the packet that shows all of the phases.
Yeah. And still, I marked 4. So I wonder if they're really,
I believe that 5 and 4 might have been flipped.
all right. 7, 6. So it says now phase 4, but it's not done. Have it right there. And they haven't changed the lights in that section.
Okay.
So I think they may be,
I will confer on the map that I have, and if it's not the same, I will
okay,
resend it. She just sent me a new one.
okay.
If you like, I'll pay the other additional $1.92 to get the other phases on.
Next, Jeff, just to clarify, I think this came through finance committee, and so there were no concerns on this one.
Oh, it's finance. Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've talked about this though in Public Works last year, I think, but that's where my confusion was.
Any idea when, no, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Any idea when, phases 6 and 7 might be completed?
I am pushing them as hard as I can. I'm hoping within the next few months. It also depends on their workload as well. They're not just concentrating just on this, they have their other work as well. So
Okay.
hopefully within the next few months, that is the goal, is to get it all completed within the next year and a half.
Okay, and just so it doesn't get, this is the last one, Eric.
Sure.
This, just so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle, when this was first presented to us, we were told that people can go to PSE and get the lights dimmed if they're overly bright. So just to make sure that that keeps happening at every phase, the like knowledge of how to do that doesn't get pushed aside. Please.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yay.
Any other comments from the council? How do we treat this item?
Consent.
Consent.
Consent it is. Thank you.
Lethal consent.
Thank you, Mr. Morrow. That wasn't so bad, was it?
Nope.
Not
That's why
everybody's
Mike and
afraid
Kylie
of
get
that.
the medium.
Well,
Okay.
it's pretty easy to get this kind of project.
The next item is, we have two information only presentations. The first one is the update on the 2026 to 2030 CDBG/home consolidated plan process. Ms. Lynham, welcome.
Like even all the things that are in flux, we're still kind of going about our usual processes, and part of that is the our next 5-year consolidated plan. Obviously, we received CDBG and home funds from Department of Health and Urban Development. Those funds primarily benefit low to moderate income individuals and families and neighborhoods in our communities. And specifically next week, at the regular council meeting, we want to share the community outreach piece of that planning process. And so I'm just going to do a quick refresh on what the consolidated plan is. It is our 5-year framework that we develop in a joint process with Kitsap County, and it allows us to assess our needs and market conditions and make data-driven, place-based decisions on how we utilize the federal dollars that we receive. Our goal is to use available data and community input and identify the needs and create a strategic plan to help meet those needs.
I see my district in there. Recognize.
There are several components that are included in the consolidated plan. So our public process combined with that needs assessment and market analysis inform the funding priorities, and that comes together in the form of the strategic plan. So all of those components together make up the consolidated plan. And then just kind of a quick timeline on what this process looks like along with our usual annual process. Right now, we're still in the early stages of data gathering, community survey, as well as outreach to service providers and other local governments. And that process will inform our funding priorities. And those priorities will be included in our year 1 policy plan, which I usually bring to you guys in May or June. And then from there, we conduct our annual grant process, which goes May through September. And then I come to you guys again in November with those applications. And so our consolidated plan will get submitted along with the first year action plan for 2026. And that will get submitted to HUD in November. These are simultaneous. And the funds that are included in that annual process, again, this is in coordination with Kitsap County. And so it includes the city's entitlement of CDBG dollars for projects like housing rehab, public services, public facilities projects, and economic development that primarily benefit low income individuals and families. Home investment partnership, which is administered by Kitsap County, we receive 29%, 29% set aside of those dollars for affordable housing projects. And that can include construction of new units or acquisition. And then lastly, these would be local dollars in community investment in affordable housing, or SIA, which is the 0.1% for affordable housing. And those are local funds that are included in this process.
A quick clarifying question, right underneath the first one, the first bullet, it's 400 grand annually decreasing.
And my apologies, I meant to include just our funding trend. So the last 4 years or so, it's been steadily decreasing. So, you know, it was 2020 was around 400,000, and then from there, last year it was 388,000. So it's been decreasing each year.
Thank you.
So our goal, community outreach is a huge part of this process, and we'll be reaching out to our service providers and conducting agency consultations and participating in their regional meetings. County staff will be presenting to the other municipalities and the Board of Commissioners. They will also be attending the regular meeting next week if there are any questions about countywide funding or the consolidated plan process in general. And then I am going to be attending the District 6 meeting on March 10th. And I'll just extend that invite to all the other council members if that is something other districts would like to have as well. I'm happy to present on this process and share. Share with
Sure.
them. Yeah. And then, again, we'll be reaching out to the community at large and asking folks to participate in the process through a community survey. And we'll be sure to send out emails and updates for the public to engage in this process.
Oh, can you just go back to it? Yeah, thank you.
There we go. Our goal with the community survey is, again, to receive input from the public. And so it is open now. And what folks will see is 6 categories of various project types. And then within each category are eligible activities. And so folks are asked to go through and rate on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being no need, 5 being high need. And so this will give folks an opportunity to kind of give their input on what types of activities they feel are most needed in our community. And again, it's open now. So I've been kind of slowly, we've just put on the website today. I'll send out an EUs before the meeting next week so that folks can go out and submit that survey. And then my info is there along with the county staff and available for questions.
Okay, Jane.
So in one of your first slides, you show with the consolidated plan that you have public process at the beginning.
Mhm.
Is there going to be another time that the public can actually comment, like before you turn
Yeah,
it
so
into
that'll
HUD?
be, yes, so our, again, it kind of runs simultaneously with our annual process, so we're still in the very early stages of gathering data and then setting the priorities that'll happen at the same time as our policy plan. And so the priorities get included in that policy plan. And so it gets sent out for public comment. There'll be a public hearing.
Okay. And how long is your survey going to be open?
I believe until the end of March.
Oh, nice. Great.
Other questions? Jeff?
Thanks, Sarah. This is really, really great work. My only kind of question on the survey is there a way to add demographic information? You know, this is looking at people's income levels and other factors. That's kind of something we brought up before, and I don't know if it's asking zip code, but any granularity if they can even self-select that they live in Bremerton city limits or unincorporated.
That's something I can pass along to county staff. This is, again, it's a joint
County survey,
process. But if that's something that council feels is important to include, I can certainly. Again, yeah, I think it's just zip code, and then there's some open-ended questions, and then there's a question about
if folks feel like there should be a targeted area or what areas they feel
Mhm.
have the highest need. I think it's meant to be as open as possible.
Sounds good. Yeah, if it is possible to get on the demographic information, I think, I don't know, I think it's important. I know like, now Congresswoman Randall has brought that up before on some of these larger surveys too, to highlight that, but.
Specifically where people live.
Yeah, and demographics, especially like income levels, yeah. To see who's answering the survey, maybe not answering the survey and we're missing.
I can pass that on.
Typically,
Go ahead.
because typically these surveys are completed by people who make six figures and up and are white and own their own home. That's the demographics that we've been getting. I just had a really specific one on public improvements, which was, I think the language slum blight removal is great. It's accurate. And it really conveys, but there was some objection to that language in another context last year. That's it. Just, I don't want you guys to get in any more trouble.
Understood. No, I think that is a HUD designated term that is used in all federal regulations, but I understand that.
No, I think it's great. It's vivid language.
Actually, I asked our HUD rep about that specifically, and no plans as of yet to update that language.
Okay, so my last question is, how else can we help? Like, can we, send out, even if we can't do a district meeting, can we like send out to our district mail list? Hey, here's the survey.
Yeah, I have I'm working on just like a little one-page flyer, so if that's helpful. Can send that out with the QR code and the link.
Please, everything's better when it's one page.
Okay, other questions, comments? Okay, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
The next item up, information only again, overview of 2024 comprehensive plan transportation element. Ms. Grover.
That small chair. They have a thing on the left-hand side, the other side.
It might.
There you go. They'll
Use this for what?
raise it.
Yeah, switch chairs, Vicky, they're impossible.
Okay.
It doesn't quite seem fair. Mr. Jackson, you're not a small person, but you're just like
Towering.
above her.
Make sure everyone
It's a
can-
whoopee cushion when you need it.
I think
I
we
didn't
just
do it.
throw out that chair.
All right, go ahead, Ms. Grover.
Sorry,
Gonna get it together.
yes, we're serious business.
I'm actually looking forward to
Well, good evening, council. Tonight, I would like to talk about the plans that we're updating, work we've accomplished to date, and the next steps in the approval process. Yes, we are finally getting
it.
there. So to date, we have been updating two planning documents at the same time. These plans are the transportation element of the comprehensive plan, which was last updated and adopted in 2016, which was our last comprehensive planning cycle. The active transportation plan, previously known as the non-motorized transportation plan, was the city's first active transportation plan and was created and adopted in 2007. As a reminder to everyone, the comprehensive plan update is a requirement of the Growth Management Act. The purpose of the update is to show how the city plans to meet the projected population and employment growth for Bremerton over the next 20 years. Due to the interrelated content of these two planning documents, we decided it would be beneficial to update the plans together. And this is due to a number of considerations. I'm going to review just a few of the considerations. There are some areas of the transportation element required by the Growth Management Act and PSRC to address multimodal infrastructure planning and future improvements. So there is coordination that is necessary between the two plans. Updating the two plans concurrently allowed us to make sure we closely coordinate the effort, including we did a shared public engagement process for both plans. One of the new Growth Management Act requirements is the concurrency assessment of multimodal level of service, which includes all users of our transportation system. So what this means is that in addition to the current requirement that we follow, which is to assess concurrency for vehicular level of service, we now will need to do a concurrency assessment for new development projects to determine what infrastructure will need to be provided for pedestrians, cyclists, and transit. That's what multimodal means in this context. And this can be accomplished by reviewing development proposals as they come into the city through the concurrency management system for all transportation modes. We started with an introductory survey that we put out in January 19th through February 15th of last year.
Okay.
There were 23 multiple choice questions.
Sorry, I didn't think that would be quite so disruptive. I beg your pardon.
I'm sure glad you caught that. There were 22 multiple choice questions developed by the city staff in conjunction with a professional public outreach company from Seattle. Our initial survey had 3 goals. We wanted to understand current travel behavior. We wanted to learn from the public about perceived barriers and to learn about opportunities for other modes of transportation. And we asked the public to help identify options to improve Bremerton's transportation system. So we received a total of 605 responses, and we got some really good feedback from the community. The postcard was our most effective recruitment tool for the survey. More than half of the people who responded and accessed the survey did so due to the postcard they had received in the mail. Over a quarter of our survey respondents were recruited through the Bremerton2044.com website. So, and listed on this slide are just some of the findings from the survey. The survey results document is still available for viewing on Bremerton2044.com at the bottom of that website page. Next one. So another public engagement we did was an interactive map was presented to the public. This was to help us update what people thought should be the bike and pedestrian networks in the city. This engagement was conducted from August 19th through September 8th, also of last year. So the basis of this community outreach was a GIS map. And the idea was people could draw lines or they could place circles on locations within the city. And then they could add a written comment related to the line or circle that they had placed on the map. The goal of the outreach again was to have public weigh in using this map to tell us where they would like to see future improvements for multimodal transportation. Comments were reviewed and considered for updates to both the bike and pedestrian networks. These networks play an important role in determining where the city will focus on investing in active transportation programs and active transportation facilities as part of project development. We also received a good response from the public during this 3-week engagement. We received 225 comments, 8 emails and letters from the public. 36% of the comments requested new facilities or raised concerns about existing conditions along one of the network corridors. 68% of the feedback focused on the bike priority network, reflecting a strong desire for enhanced bicycling infrastructure. There were comments received regarding addition and or elimination of some of the bike corridors we originally proposed. For example, we heard that the 4th Street corridor was preferred to the 5th Street and 6th Street corridors. And there was a request for the bike network north of Warren Avenue Bridge preferred a separated bike connection instead of the proposed route along the off-ramp, which at that time I believe was Clara Avenue, because it's shared with cars. Preference was also heard to extend the bike network along Burwell to the west of 304 Callow Avenue. There was strong pedestrian network comments related to the need for safe crossing along corridors such as 4th Street, 6th Street, and 11th Street. Excuse me. We had 2 draft planning documents that were placed on Word, they're still there, on Bremerton2044.com for review and comment. While the comment period is closed, these draft documents have remained online for public viewing, and we are currently reviewing and considering all of the public comments that we had received during that open comment period. So on the draft documents that are on Bremerton 2044 consist of, and these are all draft, the active transportation plan and 4 attachments to that plan, and a draft technical appendices document that supports the transportation element of the comprehensive plan and its 6 attachments. The technical appendices are produced, as I stated previously, to support the transportation element of the comprehensive plan. These appendices include, for example, an assessment of the existing transportation system, and that's vehicles, freight, transit, and active transportation facilities. We must assess our existing system for future needs. Future, as defined by the Growth Management Act, includes a near-term planning horizon for 6 years and a long-term planning horizon of 20 years. We use projected population and employment data provided by PSRC to evaluate where the transportation will need future improvements to accommodate this growth. This includes a project list that must include concurrency projects. Concurrency requirement of the Growth Management Act is to ensure that public facilities are adequate to support private development projects without decreasing service levels below established standards. We currently evaluate intersections in the city to determine if proposed developments will lower our level of service standard at these locations. We updated the traffic model to see which intersections will operate below our adopted level of service in the 6-year and the 20-year planning horizons. We must also develop a financial plan to show how the city plans to pay for these future system improvements. And this also includes a reassessment strategy in the event of a funding shortfall in our financial plan. So this slide shows some of our near-term or 6-year and some of our long-term projects from the capital improvement plan. The circles represent intersections or spot improvements, and the lines represent either linear or corridor projects. The future transportation projects shown on this graphic represent currency projects and proposed projects from other approved City of Bremerton planning studies. And we also include projects that would be coordinated with some of Kitsap County's future projects, excuse me. The update of the 2007 non-motorized plan is being done at this time. We are focusing on updating the network within the city limits for cyclists and pedestrians. Some of the revisions to the network include consideration of local destinations, schools, transit services, public services, and parks. In addition to consideration for recreational uses for both pedestrians and cyclists, as we want to promote alternative traffic options for people to encourage healthy lifestyles and to reduce vehicular traffic. So this slide is to communicate with council the message that was shared with us at Planning Commission on January 27th when I did a similar presentation. The Planning Commission recommended that we finish the update to the transportation element and pick up the active transportation plan sometime after the comp plan has been completed. This would allow more time to engage the public and focus solely on this plan. The message we have heard from the public is that they would like to contribute more to the development of the plan and that we need to take more time to have more engagement with the public. We support the idea for moving this forward and wanted to share this message with council. We would just need to put a plan together as far as budget and a timeline if we chose that option. These are some key engagement dates that we've had since we began the process in 2023 through the end of through the beginning of this year. These are dates when we engaged the public for comments. And some of the events at the bottom of the slide was when staff attended to get the word out about the updates to the public planning documents and to try to communicate how they could make the comments. This is a graphic schedule for the process to move forward. With the ultimate plan to have our deadline be May or June for completion of the adoption of the comprehensive plan, and then follow it up with the certification process with PSRC that's estimated to take to the end of this year. And this final slide just shows the actual dates from the graphic schedule that you just saw. So that there are more opportunities for the public to comment, for example, at council next Wednesday. We'll also be taking public comments again at Planning Commission on April 21st. But I also want to stress that anybody can reach out to me with comments at any time directly. There's also still the comp plan email address on bremerton2044.com that has taken comments since 2022.
Yep.
And so there's still always ongoing options for the public to comment. But again, we have two specific dates, which are the February 19th and April 21st. So currently we are reviewing public comments, as I mentioned, on the draft documents, as well as comments we've received from Puget Sound Regional Council and WashDOT. So keeping in mind our deadline date of June is when we must send the city's complete comprehensive plan to PSRC for certification, which allows the city to continue to seek transportation grant funding. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jane?
I had a couple questions, Nikki.
Okay.
It's my slide 39 of 50, and it's the map showing transportation project list draft spot improvements. So it's a little confusing to me. Are the dots where we're actually going to do a spot improvement?
Yes. So it'd be either.
So what about all these roadways that you've colored in?
So the circles are like spot improvements and or intersection improvements. And then what's confusing, Jane, and I will agree with you. So like, for example, those lines could be a corridor project such as an adaptive signal on Burwell. So so it's a line drawn instead of maybe a circle at each intersection.
Well, I'm looking at things like the Manette Bridge and High Avenue from, it looks like from 11th to the water. Are those like paving plans?
Well,
I don't understand what all I get spot improvements, but I
Okay.
don't get all the lines.
so like specifically, like, and I'm sorry, I don't know if this helps. So this map is representative of the capital improvement project list that's also in the draft documents. And so so the Sixth Street, I believe, would be the Sixth Street,
Road.
yes, road diet, or we call it something different now, would be what that's shown on Sixth Street. Keeping in mind, we don't have construction funding yet for that, so it stays on this list.
Yes.
And so did you have another specific one on here,
Well, like
Jane?
we have lots of streets
Yeah.
that are shown, the whole corridor is purple with no spot improvement. So I'm just curious if that means, just, I'm not aware that we're doing any projects down in Rocky Point, for instance.
So
what
that
the
would,
city would be.
and so that would be a continuation of coordinating with Kitsap County. So anytime you see any of those lines going outside of city limits, that is because we coordinate and are showing what we could do to match up with something the county is doing.
Okay.
Right? In order to have a continuous network, just because it's the county and the city, we should still try to coordinate and continue some of their projects that they're proposing. So that is what you see when you see the lines outside city limits.
Okay, and then these other lines, the majority which are within city limits and don't have spot improvements.
Yeah, so for example, Northeast Rydell Road, we're proposing a bike and ped up there. And so it's shown as a corridor. Let me see if I can find a better example for you, Jane, because I know I do hear what you're saying in that it is confusing. So for example, we could say bicycle corridor signage, pavement markings, and intersection treatments for shared roadway. That's going to be shown as a line.
Okay.
Share roads.
Okay, that's,
Does that mean?
don't do any shares, please.
Well, we have some proposed, but then that would be shown also as a corridor rather than, I know, and I do understand what you're saying, but hopefully what we do is we review this project list while looking at the map and try to help us to understand why some of those are shown as lines.
Okay. So another question, you mentioned that you have to look at your budget for updating the active transportation plan. I believe we did a contract with Parametrics for $400,000.
That's about correct, yes.
And are
Yeah,
you
right.
saying that we need more money than that? Because there's a lot of things they didn't do that really are needed to be done. Like,
More public outreach, Jane, is gonna cost more money. Unfortunately, public outreach is expensive. And so that's where we would need additional budget.
well, we all have free district meetings, but anyway, we can figure that out. But
Sure,
the thing that's kind of bugging me is, in your draft plans, it shows that you're trying to give levels of stress to certain roadways. And so one being where a child could ride their bike down the middle of the road, and 4 is a superhero bike rider. I don't understand why Parametrics decided Wheaton Way is a 2, where even WashDOT has that listed as 4. And that I don't understand how Parametrics could have done this analysis by using posted speed limits instead of actual speed data, because we know it's vastly different. So are we going to have to pay Parametrics more money to get accurate data, or?
I can kind of help with some of that.
Okay.
what it is right now is WaDOT uses actual speeds when they have it. Otherwise, they use posted speed in their evaluation. And that's, we're doing the same thing. We're following WaDOT practices right now for doing this. But that's one of the things that we're looking at with the State Street Committee is what should we really be doing? We're trying to figure that out ourselves. But also put the question out, what do we want for an LTS? Because every jurisdiction is doing it a little bit differently. Some jurisdictions use volume, some don't. There's just a whole list of what, and one of the best ones I found was actually Montgomery County in Delaware.
Yeah, but you're different than what WashDOT's even listing it as.
They
So if you're using
they
the
use
same,
WaDOT.
And well, it's somewhat subjective, and if we don't have actual speed data, like if we haven't done an actual speed test on that road, then all parametrics knows is the posted speed.
Yeah.
So it's about making sure they have the right, and we can get into all of this.
yeah, because it's not really accurate information.
It is subjective. It definitely is, but these are things that we can focus on. If we decide, if council decides to do the active plan after we get our copy. Because I hear you.
Well, we'll be hearing a lot from the public next week.
Denise and then Jeff.
Just wondering, is there a way to do that public engagement, community engagement, and meet the deadline? Should we just be operating from an assumption that we're not going to meet the deadline and it'll be out?
Denise, let me
Side of
be
that.
clear with you. So of the two planning documents,
Yeah.
only one.
Okay.
So it's the transportation
Right.
element.
Which is why we took the active
Which is why
transportation out.
we can set.
Right.
And see, as I was saying, part of the reason we did them together is it's a shared engagement public process.
Yeah.
Because we could try to gather them accountable.
Yeah.
That made it a little less expensive. To pull that active plan out and give clearly what I've heard from the public as well as council, more public engagement.
Mm-hmm.
We are gonna need to figure out how to do this.
The one community forum or meetings that you had, I attended that and it was wonderful. I mean, it was great.
I think it was an open house we had in October, yeah.
Yeah, that went so well. And I'm wondering if the same type of thing, you know,
Can
when
we
are
do
you
the
gonna,
same?
when are you
Yes.
gonna get a cost estimate on what it is we're?
We need direction
Okay.
first,
Okay.
so that's part of why we're here tonight too, is, you know, I don't know how many of you watch planning commission, that's recorded, can watch it as well. So, you know, so I'm trying not to get ahead of myself, but say that we do support this way to do things, but again, want council to weigh in and give us.
And was that, and planning commission's concerns or questions are all in that slew of information that you'll
Yes.
be going over
And,
as
and
well?
they're similar to what council's been saying.
Yeah.
We need more public engagement. Let's slow down.
Yeah.
And spend some more time and put a plan together that we're all proud of.
Yeah.
And because we can at this point in time too, if it, instead of trying to push it through in a hurry, kind of what I've heard, we're in a hurry with the transportation. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, Jeff?
Yeah, no, thanks, Vicki, for all the hard work on this. It's a lot.
It is.
I mean, it really is. It's 20 years of transportation projects. So, logistically, so as I look at it, appreciate, you know, we may need to find a little more funding, but for that transportation plan. But I do see, even in the short window, we got a lot of feedback. Me just going through it too and talking with folks, there's a, you know, I think a lot to dive into on the active transportation side. And we obviously have a lot of interest in the city and on this council. And so I would hate for it to be rushed and then we as a city are wasting funding down the road, you know, going back and forth on projects. And so I really am supportive of the planning commission's recommendation on let's put out the active transportation plan. Let's get the rest of the comp plan passed and then revisit that one so that when it is passed, you know, everybody will be happy, but as many as possible are happy on board and we can move forward smooth sailing. So logistically, how do we, are we looking at a motion for that, the next council meeting? If we hear from public, are we making a decision here? Or that's a question for you, President.
Well, my understanding is that, go ahead, Andrea.
I was just gonna add, please realize that the planning commission doesn't have authority to tell public works.
Right.
So they made a recommendation to public works. Public works is telling you what the planning commission did. But you have to decide to do something because they do not have authority to do this.
Right.
Ordinarily, the planning commission makes recommendations to city council about legislative action. This is sort of outside of their swim lane because they are supposed to stay with making recommendations on the comprehensive plan and the zoning project. So they were out, on the edge saying, we hear you, public, we want to give some thought to this. And that's why we left the work.
Thank you.
Makes total sense. And I know the county has decoupled their plans as well, and they finished their comp plan last year, and they're working on the active transportation. So, are we able to make that?
Shouldn't we wait to hear from the public
Yes,
next Wednesday,
so I'm
and then
wondering
we
if-
can make a decision?
Do we make that decision at the end of that item next week, or is it in the future study
Is
session?
time of the essence, or can we just
Yeah.
wait for the next study session to decide whether to do that?
Well, if you ask me, I'd say we can wait till, next study session if that's what you guys want.
Yeah.
Is it ordinance or?
No, the next Wednesday is information only. You're doing a presentation to the public. We're not voting on anything.
Yeah, so I was wondering.
Correct.
So,
Okay, so we do, well, let's talk about it. following
yeah, we
session.
we can do a follow-up conversation, the next study session would be appropriate. As far as, okay, Anna, are you done, Jeff?
Oh, sorry, we're able to take, just checking with Kylie, able to take action, because it's not I guess it's just a group consensus. It's not like we need a motion for it.
Yeah, we could work out the procedures later.
You can
But
tell me and I'll do it for sure.
Ned, go ahead.
Well, it's not a requirement that the active transportation come through right now. It is for the transportation element. So it's in our scope to deliver them together. It means a contract amendment, to change the scope, probably some more money to pay the consultant to do the additional work. We don't want to rush it either. It feels rushed. It feels like it needs more work, right? So let's not push it through. We like the idea, but there's going to be a cost. So when we say we got to find budget, we're going to have to figure out how we scope it correctly, do the additional outreach, figure out the things that we need to do with LTS, BLTS, right? All that stuff. And then I don't know that it takes a formal council decision to not deliver the active transportation plan. I think we just need to understand that that's the direction you want us to go. And then we would go back and work with the consultant to try to figure out what that correct scope is and that budget. And then we bring that through for council to approve if it's over the mayor's authority to have council approve it. So I don't think we need a formal action. That's fine. Do you think we do? No, I don't think we do. Right, we agree. Does that help?
Yep. Yes, it does, Ned. So, Anna, you have the floor.
Thanks. So, just really briefly, I think it's great to decouple these, and one of the reasons I think it's great to decouple these is that PRR, who subcontracted all of the outreach from Parametrics, chose to reach out to Bremerton and non-Bremerton residents. To date, I have no clear idea of how they chose people, and I'm not asking for it right at this time, but I particularly look forward to having the pool be separated into just Bremerton people. And I also think that there were so many questions about driving that that people might have had a difficult time wading through. I also was, tell me if I'm wrong on this one, I was very confused that the rush hour traffic was investigated from 8 o'clock until 10, which seemed to ignore the fact shipyard starts much earlier than 8.
From peak hour that we.
Started
at
yeah.
6, that the modeling results.
So I'm
were
wrong about that.
6.
It was started at 6.
I remember when we talked about this one is what I want to say, and I believe we said
Okay.
we need to change it. because you are correct.
Okay, well, so I was
Currently, that-
correct then,
You were
wrong now.
correct, and currently that's what our
Fair enough.
documents show.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad, my earlier incarnation was smart. I agree with everyone on council who has spoken for decoupling these. Thank you for a whole lot of hard work. I just have a question about the bike priority network, and that's my last question, which is, this is just the comments, right? Like, there's an actual network that connects to things somewhere else?
Yeah.
Good.
It'll connect.
All right. Any other questions or comments from council? No? We'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky.
Thank you.
So it's 6:30. I suggest we take a 10-minute break.
Bless you.
So 6:40 sharp, please.
It was pretty good.
Hey, we're back. Now we're gonna go to general council business, and actually we have eight items listed, so this may take a while. The first is I'm gonna pass out, and this is in your packet, the legislative priorities, but it might be easy to look at in,
Do you have the list we made? From the,
no, I don't.
Q4 study session?
No, I don't. And so if
Okay.
someone does have that list, they can remind me or bring it up. So we have next February 19th and 20th, I believe we have 3 council members that are going to be down in Olympia for AWC Action Days. What I'm handing before you is the legislative priorities. And remind me, this was last year that we talked about this. Were we in agreement with these legislative priorities?
Can I,
Go ahead.
okay, cool. So this was on December 4th. I pulled this one up, legislative priorities study session. We talked about many different ones, and the ones that I believe we came into consensus with were $3 million to sustain the ferry funding, the Kitsap Lake project. I have $350 cap circled, but I think that has to do with, somebody remind me what the $350 cap was when we were waiting on language from administration for, okay,
No.
$350,000.
no, $350.
No, that wasn't $350. This is, yeah,
Yes.
small work.
Small works, okay.
Oh, it was modifying that.
Yeah, 350.
Yes,
Yeah.
Public Works really wants that.
Okay, 350K. The K is missing. We also have the Gorse Creek and the bridge, and those were the ones that we talked about being our highest priorities.
Okay, who all is going down?
Hey, we're getting the band back together.
Did you guys want to have talking points as far as, or are you comfortable? We don't have to rehash that. We all were in agreement on that.
Yeah.
We have an didn't we make a proclamation on our legislative priorities?
I don't think so.
I thought we did.
I think we did too.
Yeah, let's look at the 12/17 meeting.
Would have been in the resolution.
Yeah, we had a resolution.
Resolution, I apologize. Thank you. Resolution 3391 to adopt City Council's 2025 legislative priorities. So we have, let's go, you're already on your way to find it, aren't you? Okay, resolution 3391. I mean, I know very little about the Kitsap Lake project. I imagine Anna will know a lot more than I would about talking points for that.
I did multiple field trips.
Yes, and I imagine, and Gorse. Well, I guess Gorse is a little different. Gorse is a road project. I imagine you might know more about the bridge funding and ferry funding.
Talk about that, yeah.
And then let me read a couple other, I'm sorry, Anna.
Eric, whenever I'm can be next in the queue.
Sure.
I'm gonna read a couple other things, and I put your names next to it, and we're gonna have the legislative priorities brought up in just a moment, but Anna mentioned behavioral health. Jane mentioned the Jada K Trail. There's also mention of Washington State accreditation for all police departments and recertification. Michael suggested defer to AWC. And medical detox, you got it?
Got the
All right.
resolution, so we passed, blah, 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 identifies the following 6 items as priorities. The AWC 2025 state legislative priorities. You have funding for Kitsap Lake, Warren Bridge funding, Gorse Corridor, Kitsap Fast Ferries, and 75K/150K in-house public works projects. So,
That was language right away. Did I catch them all? Did I get all the Pokemon?
You got them all.
Hey, right on.
So did it say that we were going to support these? Is that part of the proclamation?
Yes.
Okay, Anna, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'd like to add this. I got up and rapidly went to the bathroom during this study session, and by the time I came back, it was over. Something that we were lobbying for in 2024 was a 50-bed chemical detox facility on the Kitsap Peninsula. not just a general behavioral health support, but specifically every single
Yeah.
time this comes up, it just keeps going around and around because we have nowhere to take people. There is a social detox in Port Orchard, and I believe there are 9 or 11 beds, a very small number at St. Michael's in Silverdale. We've never been able to figure out how to get to
We also have detox in Bremerton.
chemical detox.
Yeah. And I do have a star next to here and it has your name, Medical Detox Behavioral Health Services. So you must, yeah.
Yeah.
And I would be happy to advocate for that too, but I don't know what we do with that. We had decided if we didn't have an agency that was picking it up, what did we decide with that?
That does make it tough. We don't have a project or a proposal to advance. It makes it more challenging, especially at a year where they're facing huge cuts. Probably taxes cuts, whatever.
Isn't this the fiscally conservative option? Isn't chemical detox less expensive than incarceration?
So who will be our medical detox provider when we can't even get a hospital in Bremerton? So that's what I think that was our point was, yes, we want to advocate for it, but we don't have a provider.
Maybe we need to work on that. Just should have had the discussion before our goals, but of identifying a partner that would be willing to at least craft a proposal to advocate for.
Okay, I will start working on that, and I'm sure everybody else, other people will start working on it too.
Can talk to you outside this meeting because it involves possible election related things, but I've got another something on the horizon to
Okay,
that helps with this. Yeah.
that would be great. Okay,
Ms. Jane.
find a community
So-
partner. That's the language.
Fiscal sustainability. I know we had a discussion on this, raising the property tax from 1% up to a possibility of 3%. And I was very much against that. I think that's too big of a jump. So does that mean that we're gonna support it anyway?
We're not gonna go down there and
Well,
say we
we-
want, we've already made it, but we're not gonna go down there and say we want this property thing. We have our priorities.
We've
for
said it in there
Bremerton.
that we
I
are.
know, but. Okay. I
That's what the council voted on in December.
Yeah.
Whether you want to espouse that when you meet with the legislature is up to you.
Are you gonna be with us?
No,
Don't worry, I'm not gonna talk about a
I've been
property
sending
tax.
my emails.
So I'm pretty sure we're gonna be talking about the bridge, the ferries. Those are gonna be our 2 top priorities, you know? And then the other things, of course, but. It's not on the list, but, well, I don't have any plans on talking about the property taxes, which I'm not a fan of either.
Okay, so the Kitsap Lake renovation project, this is all in the resolution. So for those that are going, you may want to revisit this, print it, save it, or whatever. The background information is in the packet, including the public works improvements, Kitsap Lake project, et cetera, et cetera. So sounds like we're pretty confident that you guys will represent us well. So enjoy. And then for the rest of us, 1, 2, 3, 4, we either need to attend via remotely or we need to be there in person or we don't have a quorum.
Oh.
I'll be here.
All right.
Last question on that, Brian McConaughey. We heard anything if he's set up meetings for us or?
Meeting him at the coffee shop.
Okay.
I've got it on calendar somewhere, but it's like around noonish.
Okay. I can get the details.
That's nice.
Sweet.
That'll be good.
Excellent. I appreciate him.
Okay, done with that? Next item is the briefing on our joint planning session. Hard to believe that was that last Saturday? It seems like
Only
it's,
days ago.
It was.
I don't know, for my personal life, because of my other work, the last 2 weeks have just been a long deal, so.
I imagine so.
And Saturday, February 8th seems like a very long time ago.
Hey, wow.
Thank you.
All right, so I just, Christine modified this as of like 4:30 this afternoon, took my notes and our discussion. we changed it to 2025, 2026. Keep in mind that these aren't set in stone. Things can evolve, so we're not saying this is it for this year. However, it is a general guideline, so keep in mind that staff they're doing their day-to-day things and getting things done, and they need to know what our goals are. And yeah, things are gonna come up, understood, but we're gonna be focusing on these. And remember, I said last Saturday, I'm gonna be following up with committees and the ad hocs, and I gotta come up with a schedule, and I'll give you your time to be addressing that. But I'd like us to focus our efforts on these goals and getting them done before the end of the year. Again, there can be things that come up, but I think we need to come in agreement. Yeah, we're going to concentrate on these. Hopefully. Okay, so I'll give you a chance to look them over. Maybe just take like a minute and I'll get to you, Jennifer. You can have the first question or whatever.
Whatever. I've got one on 2, 3, when you're ready.
Okay. I wish I had my notes I could do. This team.
Just brief housekeeping on number 6. I mean, it doesn't matter that it's not there, but we had some language changes.
Okay, well, as soon as everybody tells me they're ready to discuss. Oh, thank you.
What does the underlining mean?
That's just changes that weren't on the original one.
Okay.
Original goals. They won't be there for when this gets published.
Okay.
But Eric, the ones that are listed as study sessions, these are ones that you're going to.
They're not assigned to anybody, so it's my responsibility to get them on a study session.
Okay,
Full
that's
council.
what I thought.
We had a watershed, manage the watershed for water quality, and there was a subhead of the water utility lands. Am I missing that somewhere?
We talked about, well, first of all, I'm gonna let Jennifer have the floor. Keep that one.
All right.
And then I think we're ready to discuss. Jennifer, go ahead.
Sure, just brief housekeeping was number 6. We had some language changes, which it doesn't really affect it. But one thing that I think that maybe as I'm processing all of our ad hocs, you're saying you want to stick to the goals. I guess I'm wondering if you have a running list of ad hoc committees and how they relate to council goals, for instance. And I'm not trying to throw shade on it, but there's an LTAC ad hoc. And shouldn't an ad hoc be related to a goal? If you think about it.
We can make it as a goal. I'm willing to put that as a goal.
Promote economic development.
Do you have a list of all the ad hocs? Because I was told I was on 2 and anyway.
Well, they're listed in here, but I'll come up with a list.
Well, no, I
That's
think,
not a problem.
yeah, no problem. So I feel like it might be helpful to have all the ad hocs.
I thought about whether or not to advance it as a goal, and yet it was already in progress, so
I wouldn't mind.
I think it
We can
might be
amend
good
it.
to put it on. It's definitely
Yeah,
sure.
economic development.
And I agree. And this is just my first year being part of the process.
Yeah.
And the discussions we had were robust, but it's easy when you don't have criteria to follow. Strict criteria just advise from council. Like, here's what council's looking for. The guidelines we're missing, I think. Whatever's allowable beyond the RCW.
You guys want to
language.
give me a goal now, or do you want time to think about it?
Tell me what your ad hoc is, what the exact,
Basically to, what was it called? A
Develop-
transition, it was a transition report.
So essentially, something like analyze and discuss the called the Lori Main report.
the Lori Main
got-
report. No, but there's gotta be better.
And develop new LTAC.
Guidelines,
Develop,
selection guidelines.
develop LTAC priorities. Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Well,
You can
develop
agree on that
objectives.
program.
Based
Yeah.
on,
Objective.
that, it was called a transition report, LTAC transition. report.
Data-based
Right, because
priorities.
Because it could come out of that and say, okay, it can all change overnight, but over the next 5 to 10 years, this is where we want to see LTAC be.
And it's,
Right.
and we're not,
Yeah.
and I just want to make sure we're not like breaking a quorum by having 3 people who are not on LTAC. I'm not gonna be part of
No,
this
You're
ad hoc.
good. We're
so-
in the, it's being recorded.
Okay.
Everybody can talk.
But I mean, for the 3 of you to meet and then like I'm doing LTAC, but that doesn't matter because it's a totally separate thing. You're developing criteria. I mean, great.
Objective criteria.
Sounds right to me.
Yeah.
Develop data-based priorities for LTAC. We love data, don't we?
Oh, how about just create an LTAC transition plan?
Okay,
Oh, there we go.
Good.
I like
There
it.
you go.
Create
That
LTAC
was a transition
plan,
report.
or
So a transition.
or
plan.
update LTAC policies and
Policies and
procedures.
procedures.
Because we don't know what it's gonna be. Just,
Yeah, it may-
just
it may
update
be
LTAC
changing
policies
thing.
and procedures, and that just like,
Yeah.
Boom, done, check.
Yeah.
Love it.
okay.
And that, so, and then,
I
do
got
we
it.
have any other lingering ad hocs that are not related to, that's my curiosity. What am I wondering? Because I would love to, maybe we,
Sure. Legislative office manager, we're almost near completion on that. I don't think we need to put that as a goal.
Uh,
Position description,
okay,
that's internal.
yeah, that's true.
That's the only
Absolutely.
other ad hoc I'm aware of.
Well, community and employee engagement, it would be, theoretically, I'm just saying like any ad hoc we have should always be like, am I wrong in assuming that should always be related to the goal? That's a little bit different, but also it does because it's employee engagement.
The goals change, so
Sure,
goals get added.
yes. So that's why I want to make sure we're just trying to
I
like help us.
appreciate that.
keep us-
Lori Main called me out on it last year, that it wasn't one of our goals.
Okay, well, here we go.
Okay, it's our goal now.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Sure. Anna, go ahead.
Great, thanks. So, number 2, 3, there was an ad hoc for developing a community outreach policy, and it was Jeff, Jennifer, and me.
That's what you're, exactly. Okay. Develop community outreach policies. I don't remember that, honestly.
Well,
Blank on the moment. but
No, it is ad hoc,
Yeah.
and I had I have it in my notes, and so that is an ad hoc committee. It just wasn't listed here.
Okay, cool.
So,
Happy to continue to be on it.
okay. And there is, so, okay, I'm waiting. I want this to be written down.
Right, I'm gonna put ad hoc, but my note says who's on it. Like, well, who do we agree was on it?
Jeff
Jane,
on it.
Jennifer, me.
Okay.
Jeff, Jennifer, me, sorry.
Not me.
No.
Okay.
You ended up on stewardship.
The environmental.
Stewardship.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
The second thing is, I remember that we had quite a debate about managing the watershed for water quality, and there was a subhead which was something like review or revise the water quality, water utility lands comprehensive plan element. What was that long name, Tom? The utility lands management. Thank you.
I thought because it's under development now, that it wasn't one of our goals, because Public Works is currently working on that, and they're supposed to bring it to us in May or June. So, something like that.
Would that fall under the development?
So,
I would say environmental stewardship.
Anna, you're right. I have here in my notes, it didn't get
Yeah.
captured. I have update utility lands management plan, and it's assigned to Public Works Committee. So you're correct. And where does that go under?
And that was also manage the watershed for water
Oh,
quality.
environmental stewardship. Okay. Okay, so hang on.
I would pick up MSD, but I know James. I do have that slight,
Yeah, Anna, you said, so I have that one down. Update utilities lands management plan. What was the next one then?
the heading was manage the watershed for water quality. And then you put as a subhead under that, something about reviewing or revising the utility lands management plan, which Public Works is currently doing, and it's one of, I think, 6.
Right, so we were just gonna have this as just update utility lands management plan and not do the watershed, because
Nope, actually, we did come to a consensus. I'm sorry, I hope I'm disagreeing with you.
no, that's fine, it's all good.
As long as I'm doing.
I mean, look at my notes, they're chaos, so go ahead.
But I remember really standing out for this, that I don't think people who read this and councils in future will understand what we're talking about if we just have that. And that's why we had the language of manage the watershed for water quality.
Manage the watershed for water.
Thank you, Eric.
I mean, I'm gonna write that down, but is that what we agreed on? Because I don't have it in my notes.
I do remember that.
I remember that discussion.
Yeah, okay.
I think, yeah, I agree.
It doesn't stand out for you because, like, Anna got passionate about something.
Yeah, manage the watershed for,
Water quality.
and then, underneath that is the update the utilities
Yeah, the
Okay,
utility
that's
land
fine.
management plan.
Got it, I got it. So that becomes the new number 11, and then this becomes an I. Gotcha.
Okay. Just language on 15.4. Which should have caught at the retreat, and I'm sorry, I just got tired, which was, like, there are two it's prioritize database traffic calming policy, prioritizing pedestrians.
No, that was an original goal, so you
Yeah.
been caught last year, but
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
That's the language we decided on, actually.
Develop database traffic calming policy, prioritizing pedestrians and cyclists. So you guys okay with that? Just changing one word. And then that'll
What
be
number
those
is that?
Staff's doing
Number
that.
15 IV.
I'm good with that. It's fine.
I missed the word change, so now I'm looking at it.
Instead of prioritize.
Just
Because
Just
it's
prioritize
mentioned
its use.
twice in the same
Develop.
sentence.
We did, that's
Oh.
that's what I typed in.
Sounds good.
Some of,
The year before last.
some of these things, the way the language is, it seems like we're taking on staff,
Yes,
like,
Okay.
I know they're
agree.
working on that, but so is it,
So, but that's through Public Works Committee,
Right.
and
How
so
about
they're the ones that are gonna do
Okay.
it. We're not gonna
Or
do it.
would
okay.
support be better language? Or you want,
Like-
you want it strong like develop?
I like develop, but
well, the thing is Public Works is going to develop it, but the Public Works Committee
How about
is
adopt?
going to
Recommend.
I like it.
tweak it.
Well, certainly.
Yeah.
Definitely let's don't tweak database traffic calming
Working
policy.
out
They're just-
Sorry, which one?
the traffic calming policy.
15.4. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Collaborate.
Collaborate.
To collaborate to. Oh, is that?
I'm the old person in this room that, like, when I hear collaborate, I think about, like,
Kumbaya.
no, I don't. I think about the French Resistance.
Oh.
Yeah, that doesn't come to mind.
I do not think.
I'm good with develop. I think we all understand the intent. We're not gonna do it. Okay, any other questions? I
No, I'm done. Thank you.
thought that was it.
Oh, you.
I
Denise and
have
Jeff.
a question, for, 3. I didn't know I was on the ad hoc for that. I'm willing to be,
For
but I haven't been in any of the discussions.
Number 3?
Historic preservation
Yeah.
policy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, well, I've been in discussions. and so
right,
has
you and
Jeff.
Jeff.
Right.
I thought you
I'm
raised
happy to
your-
join if you
I thought
want
you-
me to join.
I thought you raised your hand. You're on it.
Okay.
Didn't we put Michael on?
Blooper
that?
in,
I-
blooper in.
Didn't we put Michael on that because he wasn't there?
He wasn't
That's
there. We assigned.
Michael, you are on like 7 ad hocs now.
That's fine.
What you get?
That's fine. I'm happy to collaborate.
It would be nice to
Michael
hear
might
about
agree with you. I don't want it.
4-4 though, because we didn't, we still would love to hear about that.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I don't have anything today, but there's stuff happening.
Do you need an ad hoc for that?
Yeah, you'll be the first to know.
Okay. Fair.
Are we good now?
So my, okay,
I'm good now.
okay.
Oh, that's his job.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeff,
Okay, what did I have? Under the transportation multimodal support, might be missing it, but the update in the complete streets policy, including the committee.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Will you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Updating the current complete streets ordinance, including.
Oh, yeah.
Committee to
Yeah.
citizen.
Sort of that's the transportation board model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I totally missed that.
oh, yeah. I have it circled here, and we just changed it to updating the complete streets ordinance,
Mhm.
period.
Yeah.
Sure, that, yeah, I think
Okay.
that's committee too, yeah.
Where is that?
The discussion topics, and we're gonna put it under transportation. I'm gonna probably change the order so it makes more sense for all of these.
Right.
Update
That was under streets, right?
And so that'll be public works too.
Yeah,
the complete streets ordinance.
I have one more comment.
Okay. Thanks for that catch.
Okay,
But on pretty much all the extra funding for public safety and residential maintenance is all study session except for 10 under parks. Also got finance committee / study session.
yeah, because we're gonna, remember, we're gonna have a meeting with Mr. Riley and company. It's all gonna be, here's our here's our funding potential sources, and then how we're gonna divide them. Remember?
Yeah, so the parks one is the only one that says finance / study session, the rest just say study session, so I wanted to see if.
Yeah, that's because,
you wanted me to- Or pass back on finance.
I guess if we could just put finance.
Well, isn't anything that committees come up with on these goals, then, I mean, then we're gonna bring it to a study session to discuss it with the rest of council.
Yeah, I think, so my recollection was that all the revenue source ones, we're just gonna come to study session as a whole.
A single
A
study
single study
session. where
session
we're
on like,
talking
here's all the
about
possible
Because
revenue generating
Kylie,
measures.
Kylie had concerns about them going to multiple committees, I believe.
Okay,
Is that what you want?
I don't know, why can't, let's,
One of the questions we asked on Saturday was, and then we go to Facebook, but we workshop all that and present the finance and then we come forward. I think,
Okay.
yeah, we're gonna give a big picture of every option for us that
Okay.
spans multiple departments.
Okay.
And then that discussion.
perfect, workshop finance, bring to study
Yeah,
session.
Workshop it.
Okay.
Okay, that sounds good, then we should just take those all for finance / study session.
Yep.
All right, excellent.
Jane?
Multifamily tax exemption. So
I have that in there?
you have it in there, but
Are you
I'm not
cropping it
crazy
out?
about the wording.
Yeah, I didn't like, I saw that this afternoon in the Bremerton factor. I did that,
Well-
to me, that's like, that's kind of.
Well, it's not only that, policy,
We need better word.
the Bremerton factor, and a focus on affordable housing. I thought the discussion was we were gonna talk about whether or not market rate needed to still be in the
I
multifamily
think
tax
that comes under
exemption.
it. Because council certainly isn't recommending that yet.
That's but it's a discussion item.
But
It
it's
was,
a review.
it's a goal. So here it says, and a focus on affordable housing.
Are you better off or more okay with just review multifamily tax exemption
Yes.
policy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Getting rid of the rest?
Sure, that's fine.
Keep it simple. Yeah.
Be nice
A whole
to,
lot of stuff is
I know.
It is
Very robust.
a robust, I love that word when it comes to talking.
And that's why we need to set aside money for Deal Mills business study session.
Might
I don't
suggest that you add the part about, adjusting the income level.
Income
So that you have
level.
clarity.
Oh, we know that's gonna be part of the discussion.
Just if anybody on the outside is looking at it, like that would be.
Thank you.
And so that's what we as staff call the Bremerton factor. and that's why it was written like that.
Oh,
These are
okay.
from my notes.
Thank
So
you.
I handed my notes to Christine and she put them in. And I should need one.
Do we
If
need
Andrea is
Do we want-
recommending it, we should probably put something
To
in there.
reflect
to reflect,
Bremerton income levels.
Bremerton income level.
Yeah.
to reflect,
To
okay,
reflect-
rather than the Bremerton factor, Bremerton income levels?
We can add that, but it's a review of the whole multifamily
Right.
tax exemption
So
policy.
this
So I don't
goal-
even know if we need to add the
Oh, I
Bremerton
see what you're
factor.
saying.
This goal is, I'm hoping
I
we
don't wanna
address
forget-
these in 2025. I have movement and there's gonna be council members that are gonna be here in 2026.
Mhm.
I think I like it the way you had proposed, just keep it simple.
Mhm.
We know what it's about. We just had another discussion on it and we know the intent. All right. Is that it?
Copy print.
Okay. All right, so if you guys are okay with it, these are much cleaner than these notes. So Christina and I are gonna work on that and then I'll tell you what, we're gonna send it out. And then if you have comments, just go to City.Council and just a one-way thing to Christine and then she'll make the adjustments. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Wait for that. Anna, are you ready to do this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Discussion on a proposal to amend BMC Title 20 to expand public notice on land use action. This also is in your packet, the write-up, and you have the floor.
In the best tradition.
Oh, last minute piece of paper.
Yep, last minute piece of paper for everybody, for all my friends.
You get a piece and you get a piece.
Did you?
You.
Eric should have one.
I gave him
I got
mine.
it.
Okay, great.
I get two and he gets none.
Okay, so this is I designed this for late night. Simple. And there's, I believe, no new information.
Does DCD have any?
I don't think they've seen it. Did you? Yeah.
Oh, this is pretty much the same as what's in the packet. It's just the elevator pitch. You want the elevator pitch, Andrea? Okay. One elevator pitch for you. Have my copy.
Oh, well, I don't want to take it, you need to make your.
No, I have this computer here.
She's got it memorized, don't worry.
I can go make copies.
I pretty much do.
Can I ask a question?
Shoot.
So by giving notice, are you talking about putting up like a sign?
The same land use application placard that we now put up for all type 2. And that we would continue only, like, I'm not suggesting any changes to, like, right now, type 2 permits, you put up a sign. But type 1 permits, you do not. So here, it's the only change I'm proposing. And the specific language is right there. Is to just add the limited or no public.
So like when there's an apartment building going up, there should be notice. Yeah.
And I know Andrea has objections, so when you guys finish asking questions, I'll answer those objections in advance. Anybody else have a question?
Not to you.
My
But it will
question
to Andrea.
is like, what's her,
Yeah.
So
what do they feel about?
here, okay, so here I just wanted to mention this, which is all of us live in Bremerton. So if you don't live in Bremerton and you work for the city of Bremerton, people who live in Bremerton, they make complaints, they make demands. That's why they come to the city. Like, if you don't live here, you don't see people putting up free libraries and establishing food pantries and looking out for their neighbors and shoveling their driveways. You don't see all of that. So I think that the tendency to think that the people in Bremerton are going to make demands and have complaints, I am hoping that this council can balance that with our experience of our neighbors who like come knock on our door when they don't see us for 2 days. Yeah, that's it.
So why is it by ordinance or state law when a permit is designated as the permit type 1?
It's by BMC.
It's by BMC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it's how you define the BMC, like in the long thing that you have in your packet, that's like the full thing that I presented in September 2023 and then again in 2024. And I didn't want to print that out for you guys another time, but it's right here in the packet, you know, because I looked at Kitsap County, I looked at Port Orchard, and I looked at Paulsboro, get 3 comparables that are all part of our local KRCC and PSR, you know.
So
it's in compliance with them.
So does Port Orchard and the county give more public notification than we do?
That I wrote down, and so I downloaded it from my RAM, but they have different things. Like I believe it's Port Orchard, but it's either Port Orchard or Kitsap. That, for example, has a whole thing about not blocking views.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it's like they have variated things.
Okay.
This one, the reason I keep pushing this is, I don't know about you guys, but this is right up there among the top questions that I get asked. It's like, what's going up there? What is that? What, you know?
Yeah.
And it seems to me that we should, at least until something's proven against them, that we should trust our fellow Bremertonians to, you know, not put in frivolous objections. You know, the vast majority of people I meet want more housing. They want more business. They want to see Bremerton live again. They'd be proud of these things.
One thing that I really like, and I think would be really helpful to the city, is like all these nuisance properties. When we finally get a hold of them and can do things like demo, that there's a sign up, because right now you don't have to notify the public. So at least they know that the city is working on a neighborhood problem. So I don't see it as being a huge burden to permit holders, but I want to hear from Andrea and Garrett about that. Oh, sorry.
Sure, go ahead. Maybe you can shed
What I'm
some light on
concerned
it.
about is that it's being construed that the city of Paulsboro doesn't. We talked to Paulsboro city staff. They don't administer it the way it's being presented. They don't give this kind of information. So we can certainly bring information back to you for further study. This runs counter to what you just did. There's new state law under 5290 for permitting process timelines to do all that. And to add notice requirements runs counter to all that state law requirements. So we just did adopted regulations for it. Here's the other piece of it. 5290 also requires us to do reporting on permit activity. Every jurisdiction in the state of Washington had to change their regs by the end of last year. And we have reports that are going to go to Department of Commerce. Commerce is going to pull that information together. And we'll be able to pull information and share it with you about what all the jurisdictions are doing. So I think the timing of this is correct, that we need to participate in these studies with Commerce, show them what we're doing with our permit process, and we can bring that information back to you as that information.
So by giving people notice, does that mean we have to give them the opportunity to object?
And to comment. And so you put a notification out there. So Derek can speak to all the what we put in for notices of big commercial projects and whatnot, that they're not land use action signs, they were informational signs for development. We added that section to the code.
Right.
And, but to add additional process where we say land use action, it adds more process, more time, and it runs exactly counter to what 52 miles.
Well, can we do something that just gives the neighborhood information of what is a,
What we've asked them to in our ordinance.
They did the, I think that if you can't make a comment on it, I think that people should be able to comment on city action.
Right, do we have support for this to go any further at this point?
I understand the premise. I understand all that. But it sounds to me like, we would be interrupting the process or kind of being out of alignment with what has gone on. You know, I want to make sure we analyze it and do it right. I do think that DCD has heard us very clearly about all this and is doing what you can to communicate with the community. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this is the right time, maybe the right time.
So far I'm not hearing affirmative, yes, I want to go, have this go any further.
I think I want to get more information before I move forward.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of the information been changing, there's updates. I want to, if it's not accurate, what's on here at the moment, let's get the accurate info from other cities to compare to.
Okay.
We share all of our permit stuff, our permit reports are online right now. We'll look for ways as we participate with Commerce. Commerce is just holding sessions right now for it to help us prepare our reports and respond to the different things. So
Yeah.
we're just doing those things now. So there'll be more information.
I would just, I'm sorry, did someone else have something? I would just like to add that this argument, and I'm not impugning it, but this is the same argument that you've used every time, and it's worked every time. So can we put this on the agenda for February 2026?
He'll be gone, but I'll be here. Denise will be here.
Okay.
For sure.
Thank you guys for letting me do this once more.
I think you have a good point on timeline and when's
Wait, February 26th, will be gone?
I said we for sure will be here.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Jeff, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No one for sure will be.
Sure.
Oh, facts,
Well,
facts.
You're right. Early.
3 more years.
I'd like to see that we have
You plan on it.
a date or a mechanism to make sure we just based on this, not next week or the week after, but down the road. I don't.
I think like an annual near Valentine's Day event, that'll be good.
Can I ask Gunnar is there a good place in the future to touch base on this?
I just don't know. I know what the reports are gonna look at. All of this is new for us. And even the development community is pushing on us for even more, like not liking what we did with 5290, wanting us to do more stuff with expedited permit review. So I think we're getting pressure on those.
Yeah.
So it's a hard place to be. We're sort of trying to balance all this.
Maybe see what comes out of this current legislative session and face after April.
How about,
Nice.
out of respect for Anna for bringing this up, how about, sometime later on in the year, you can give us an update on the permitting as far as 5290 and what you found. And as part of that, if you have some stats, what Anna's talking about, you can provide that to us. Does that sound okay?
Great.
Like it.
Inch
Okay.
by inch, step by step.
How do you need an elephant, Anna?
Michael knows it.
All right.
That's Michael's look.
Audit committee briefing. Speaking of Anna, go ahead.
Hey, Okay, so the audit committee,
Doing this?
didn't. Okay, so the audit.
It's
committee-
later on.
I thought there was.
Go ahead.
All right, wildly went away from the agenda, like crazy go nuts away from the agenda, in discussing what was the nature of outreach, which is what the auditor is currently working on. She was having a little difficulty getting some final stuff to wrap up the parking thing. I'm not sure if I told you last month, but the thing with the parking is it might well be cost effective to bring it in-house. But the thing is, nobody wants it. People who have it, like people who have brought it in-house, have rued the day. They just really, really not like doing it. Remember Chief Wolf told us at one point that it was a great day when Kitsap Humane took over the animal control.
Yeah.
It pretty much just like that. So the recommendation of the audit committee is that we wrap this up and not revisit it. Does any member of this council want to direct the audit committee to do something else?
Wouldn't dream of it.
Okay. So the second thing is we talked a great deal about outreach. And here I'm just triple checking with you guys if we've heard several outreach things today. And it's basically, you do a survey, you do a mailer, you do a couple of virtual and one in-person open house, you get the results of the data, you analyze the data, you present the data to the public. These are recurring things. And so this forms the bulk of like figuring out how to compare what we are currently contracting out compared to doing it in-house. One big advantage is that this person would also be a communications person, would also be available to for other tasks typical of communications managers. Like you could go to this person and say, draft me a press release. So, and then we went off on a wild divagation about public transit, which you guys don't need to hear about. So the auditor is continuing to work on the cost benefit analysis for a communications manager position versus contracting it out as we currently do.
Yeah. Question.
Yeah.
So are you analyzing current contracts throughout all the different departments to see? how much
Jenny
money-
is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And in some, and it's a little tricky because in some, like PRR is a great example, right? That costs what, 400 grand?
Mm-hmm.
So, and a communications manager, at least last year was, the cost to the city would be about 125K. So it would seem, you know, that was what spurred the cost benefit analysis. But just because something looks like it's going to save money doesn't mean that it's gonna.
Yeah.
So that's why it's great to have Jenny doing it. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Good. Anybody want to know lots about public transit and how the audit committee feels about it?
I don't
Alrighty
like
then.
it.
Okay.
We need more.
All done.
Okay, thank you. I learned what divagation means, to wander or stray from the subject of course. I was not familiar with that. I don't know.
I'm so sorry.
No, I'm admitting my weakness, public schools. Okay, I know, I'm just joking.
Wow.
Or did it get?
That was a pretty snarky comment about public schools.
Public universities then.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Public Safety Committee, no, Finance and Investment.
I mean, perfect. Couple items, cities applied for a commerce grant for building efficiency. Hopefully we get it, and then I'll be looking for council acceptance in March. No matching funds, it's state funding. It cover police station, Admiral Theater, Navy Museum, Sheridan Center. Heads up on that one. Talked about the LED conversion money, not a lot, but we got it tonight, so that's done. The Minette Sewer Main Project, we got to write due to the timing of the project and the delays that had with the loan from Ecology, is we basically need to go out for a new loan. So we've submitted, and I put on here, we should hear by end of January if we got it or not. You know, if we, okay.
I haven't looked at them yet.
Okay. Okay. If we do get it, then that should be coming to council in October 2025, and same thing, super low interest rate, and so fairly routine, but it was a very nice heads up that we need that new loan to proceed with the project. So that would come to us end of this year. Won't rehash that we talked about the federal grant freezing that had happened that day and changed the next day. So and then the last two items were from the committee. The first one is made a request to review all the purchases between 25,000 and 100,000 over the last year since we raised the cap for mayor's authority to spend within budget without coming to council. So the committee just wanted to review the list of those expenditures.
Is that a repeat of what the audit committee has done? Didn't the audit committee
The
look
audit
at
committee
contracts?
looked at contracts, at contracts that were less than 100K.
And they look for things like, when you combine the contracts, or, you know, you separate them.
Yeah, to make
under the
sure they're
threshold.
not accumulating.
So they've already done that.
Similar, although I think this would include things like, hey, a pump worth 45,000 was purchased and approved. Okay, but then what other expenditures happen between that 25 and 100? But
Yes,
Mike, yeah,
There was a request to, we redid it, move the threshold to 100,000. I think the council member request, maybe they could reconsider that number to 50,000. So what we could provide is getting between 25 and $100,000 contracts. They can see that.
Oh, okay.
All the expenditures.
Yeah,
Sure. Not an audit, because you'd be auditing yourself.
Providing data.
Okay.
just the data.
Just so you have an idea, so you make an educated
Yeah,
decision.
wanted to evaluate that
No
decision.
worries.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think depending on what keeps happening top down and work level and making sure Mike Riley gets some sleep, we're hoping for that by next meeting, but if it's the one after, understood. Yeah,
Yeah, we'll have it by next.
appreciate that. And the last one was, we talked about in retreat, but having Director Barker join us and adding parks to the finance committee. So
Woohoo!
that was it.
That one's not just a simple line item to do that. We can
need
do
to amend
it.
The council rules.
Council rules
Yeah.
and procedures
Yeah,
won't be in the charter. But council rules and procedures.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah,
And
so we'll have to do a resolution
Yeah.
and the whole work. So we can't just say,
No,
it shall
exactly.
be.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
On the
All right.
to-do list.
That's it.
That's it for finance.
Okay. Public safety.
Yes, I want to give a shout out to John Hickling, because I actually asked him for minutes for last week's meeting and he sent them to me already. I'm done, so makes it a little bit easier for me to give you a full report. Anna, it was her first meeting and Michael was in the air, flying out to Orlando or wherever it was.
Atlanta.
And
So did you make him chair?
yeah, we did it done.
You are now chair.
But we did defer the meeting minutes because obviously Anna hadn't attended the December meeting and we didn't feel comfortable. So Kylie moved to defer them until next month. We had a great update on the court. Court Administrator Lisa Harding joined us. It was very nice to see her, meet her. She says court is doing well. They have pro tem Judge Armstrong presiding and other pro tems are presiding when needed, along with Commissioner Green. We have security at the door and security in the courtroom. All is running well. Anna asked if the contracted armed guard is still working there, and yes, Seattle's Finest is still working upstairs when court is going on. And then legal, went over the workers' comp, that we heard about today. And also, kind of gave us an update on what's going to be coming before council about the red light cameras. And that contract, the choices that we're facing. And it appears that the recommendation will probably be to change vendor, get the new equipment and install additional cameras at park and school. Those are the two options. There was a little bit of discussion about that funding and how that's managed within the budget. Right now, it goes into general operating, and there was some feeling on public safety that, well, it would sure be nice to tie that funding into public safety somehow, along with parks, like any fees for that offset, green space or whatever, to tie that in with the parks budget. But Mike was saying that at least right now, it's a pretty revenue, what am I looking for? Neutral, cost neutral. And, but we still want to find out a little bit more about that. So that will be coming to study session, and presented, don't know, let's see what date. Not sure what date. In fire, there was no specific agenda item. Chief McGanny was there though, and we talked about the crews being back home from my home state, California, fighting fires. We're all glad they're back home. And then he did bring up the potential merger, the creation of a fire district, fire authority. And they're investigating two areas. He told us all this really at the retreat. Investigating two areas, which would be merger or the creation of a authority. And there's a preliminary document, and I think looking at 5-6 years out, and be looking at a level of service as well as the financial situation. I think those are coming up, Mike, in the next few months. Yeah. I was made aware after this meeting by a member of the public that said that there might be a third alternative, which would be like a collaborative, or there's something going on in the East Washington, over the mountains. Eastern Washington. Didn't realize how far that was until I drove to Spokane.
That's way east.
Yeah.
Idaho east.
So that will be coming to us, and there was a whole bunch of discussion about taxes, all that, but I think that will come up again. Yes.
I had a quick question. There's been some activism lately about our courts, and I wanted to be assured that courtrooms are not exactly free speech zones in the same way a council meeting is. Do you know what I mean? Do you have any answer? Oh, okay.
That's on the issue. So a judge has discretion to maintain forum in a courtroom in hours.
CDI.
Okay.
So it sounds like we don't have to worry about our courts getting disrupted by signs and things. Okay, all right.
So far, so good.
He did bring up something that has been brought up time and time again with public safety and with me personally, and that is as we bring in more and more nonprofit housing that bring together a lot of at-risk people in the same place, that calls for service that get elevated, and that the costs increase while the taxes do not, because of course nonprofits don't pay their taxes. So it's something for this council. It is something for this council to consider. We get more and more and more, not saying anything against them, but we're going to have to address an increased level of service, or call for service, with no increase in money. It was brought up that, same people are dispersed around the city, however, when you bring them together, that is when the conflicts happen. So having and now we, the congregate, the low barrier. It's just something that they are going to bring to our attention because the calls for service are dramatically going up when something like that is put in, because the assaults, the escalations happen when they're living in close proximity. So it was discussed. It will be discussed again, I'm sure, as we talk about funding public safety. It's not a good situation when we don't have enough money for public safety and our calls for service are going up, but we're not getting any more money for providing those services. So it's something we're going to have to figure out. I'm not judging it either way, but it is a reality that we're facing. Chief Wolf talked a lot about they're down on staff because of retirements, and he did say they let some people go. So he's still, of course, that came after Chief McGanny, and the fire department's going to step up and say they don't have enough money to. It is a reality. I'm going to keep blowing that horn. Our public safety funding is reaching, the calls for service and the lack of funding is reaching a point where we're stretching them too thin. And they're going to have to start making decisions about what other calls they're not going to go out on. Majority of calls, of course, vast majority of calls are domestic violence calls. They'll continue to make those a priority. State law says that they have to make it a priority, but there might be other low-level crimes that are happening that they won't be able to respond to. I share this with you. It's not a threat. They're not threatening us. They're just telling us these are the realities. Jeff?
So I know we have on our council goals to look at public safety funding, and we've had that, and we're going to keep talking about it. I know recently the chief was also publicly critical that we only spent 3 minutes and change on public safety in our retreat.
Because I told him it's because he does it so well.
Yeah. Is public, if there's anything that we haven't been made aware of or anything that this council can do?
He
is he gonna
hasn't
bring it
brought
through
things to public
Okay.
safety, certainly, that should be
I just
advanced
want
to a
to
retreat.
put out there absolutely. if
Except for
there's-
this, except for the
Right.
calls for service are
funding.
going up and funding,
Which we have in our goal and priority.
I think
Okay.
administration, I think police department and fire department do a really good job managing the money they're getting, making sure they're doing as much for our community as they can. But there is concern that that's going to be changing because same amount of officers, same amount of patrol, more crime, and they're going to have to make some tough decisions. Yeah.
This question's actually for Andrea. In the comp plan, do we set aside or talk about setting aside land for future police stations or fire stations, or do I identify?
Yeah, from the 2016 comp plan and carried over into our draft. There's a square footage required per employee.
That doesn't really,
Yeah.
I mean, they've outgrown the building
We
that,
haven't identified specific sites. The plan, the comprehensive plan won't get to that granular level of detail. Certainly, we own a lot of property around by parks, public works, public utilities. And then you're also considering where you might dispose of some of those properties for affordable housing. So that's probably something you should consider and talk to the chief about where you might be precinct and consider that and to consider.
Captain Elton spoke out. He had watched or participated in the city council meeting where there was testimony alleging BPD's poor treatment of the homeless. This information is false. Captain Elton agreed to weigh in and give facts. Common Street usually responds first. He talked about how we're aggressively enforcing the unlawful storage and camping ordinance and alluded to the idea that we're taking items from people like blankets and clothing. We look back, he actually looked back through, since November, We've written 3 reports and made no physical arrests for any camping or storage issue. We're not taking anybody's blankets or clothing. There was a frustration communicated, and so he definitely wanted council to know they're looking out for that kind of stuff, and it's not within their practices to do that type of thing, and they have not. He specifically said they had not.
Something that I'd love to find out more about, is there are RCWs that dictate storage of items. And I have sent an email asking the question, but I haven't really received a response to what our protocol is for it. And if I have, I apologize for looking for I was wondering if that might be something you could find out for us.
We are, I gave them a heads up that one of our, goals is to, if not monitor, at least, communicate the impact of our programs. And though that could easily be, a part of that. I gave them a heads up that we're going to be asking for, more data, more impact, and certainly policies and procedures could be part of that.
Okay, I just wondered if anybody else was curious about that, if there's a policy for, I mean, at times you do have to, when you give proper notice, you have to move people along, and there is an RCW dictating storage of people's belongings, and I just wanted to know what our internal procedure was. I mean, there's supposed to be a log, there's supposed to be like, I think 30 days or something like that. So I just want to find out more.
Okay.
I believe that's been sent to us.
If it has, I apologize for missing it.
I'll look into it.
And so if somebody
At
has
least
that
until
and
next
forward it
month
to me,
when
that
we
would be
share.
wonderful. Okay, thank you for your, thank you.
And then there was contracts. What was so interesting to me was there's a new interlocal purchasing agreement, and we were all about, is it buying from out of state vendors, and Matt Dunning on with that assured us that in fact it was being used to purchase paint for the Wyckoff overpass using a local vendor. So that sold us. We were fine at that point. Anna was a little skeptical.
I am skeptical. It's a company that is incorporated in Texas, which that's fine. But its policies and procedures seem to be based on regulations made by the state of Texas for the Texas Education Service. And that is something that I'd really like to keep monitoring, because policies that align with the state laws of Texas about education,
who knows now? But
that's true, they could be progressive comparatively now.
Melinda did say, when we do engage with a new purchasing cooperative, we vet that the cooperative is compliant with Washington State RFP solicitation law. So they are in compliance with our laws in Washington. And I think that might be, red light cameras. Yeah, we talked about that. These minutes, we're going to have a new webpage on the city webpage, and public safety minutes and all of that will be available for folks. And certainly a study session will be spent on these red light cameras contract, and all of our questions will be answered.
All of
I really like it that these are actual minutes, not action minutes.
Yeah.
Just a couple of things to supplement on that. Eric, perhaps you can tell me why I thought that red light camera revenue used to go to the residential street fund before that was absorbed into Transcat. That's just nothing.
I think it did. The general fund, the biggest street off, it was on the street, it's capital. Sort of those dollars, it used to be a public safety prior to.
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah. I wrote an ordinance to put it into streets, but I don't know, particularly residential. I think we have changed the Transcap.
We'll have a conversation around it going to residential.
Yeah.
And discussion.
Then,
So good.
yeah, it was 2021 when residential is being subsumed, I think the word is, into Transcat. The second thing is Chief Wolf said something really interesting. He said people are complaining to him about traffic. And I thought, wow, that, I've never heard anybody from here complain about traffic. And then he went on to say that they think drivers are going too fast. So they're not complaining about slow cars. They're complaining about fast cars. And I just thought that was something that council should think about, because in future, when people say, I'm concerned about traffic, let's really make
It's not
sure.
about cues.
Yeah.
That's it.
Is that all?
There's a lot more. John is very thorough.
That was a 15-minute.
Really like.
I
Was
feel
that a
like I
public
attended
works?
the parks and, or the public safety without even being there.
No,
Okay.
her report was longer than the meeting. No.
So-
Sure it wasn't.
I love these minutes.
They're great.
Just to add
It
to
was
it, and this is
meaty
after
meeting, I'm
committee
sure.
meeting, I believe we're gonna have, our Judge Pro Tem James Armstrong visit us next council
Oh,
meeting.
awesome.
Good.
So you'll have a chance to talk to him.
Well, we won't, because we'll be in Olympia.
Well,
Well,
send your questions to those of
Well,
us who are.
Are
going
you
to be
driving
there.
back and forth or something?
all right. Okay,
Okay.
hey, Lodging Tax Advisory Committee.
Y'all got it. The recommendations, and I know that there's some, but it sounds like you're gonna work on some policies and, I'm sorry, I got a little distracted, sorry about that. So we did have a great discussion, and at the end of the meeting, people said, oh, we work so well together. And so that was really positive, but it would be nice to have some guidelines, and so I'm looking forward to hearing what the recommendations
Did a
are.
great job. I mean, it's a difficult committee really to facilitate unless you do what you did and just allow robust discussion.
Robust, I love robust discussion.
You know, I never want to see another
And I was-
recommendation under $5,000 in my life.
Okay, yes, Jane.
So I may misunderstand the law, but isn't it we're supposed to be using these lodging tax for, number one, people who are staying in hotels.
Mhm.
And
Heads
number-
and honestly, it doesn't have to be hotels, right?
Right.
It can be staying overnight, 50 miles plus, but actually
No,
contributing,
paying logic tax.
paying lodging
Paying
tax.
lodging tax.
Yes. And I mean, what I'm saying is it can be a short-term rental as well.
Okay, well, that's fine, and then I think there's something in there about cultural events. But I'm kind of like, why does Kitsap Building Association?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good question. So they have a lot of different events, and the one that I pointed to was the reptile. They have the reptile show, you guys. I'm right next to the reptile museum, like the reptile shop. And I know how these guys and gal and people travel all over the damn state for the reptiles. It's a very niche thing. So that alone convinced me.
So that is worth $15,500.
They also have the Home and Garden Show, right?
That's not here.
They have it in Kitsap County. This is the
People travel
hoteliers.
from far and wide to come
People
to our.
But this is,
That was what
I'm
was
glad I'm on the ad hoc.
right. And so what I really tried to do, because my first time meeting with these folks, was really try to take the hoteliers' words.
Yes.
And that's what was really super valuable to me.
Downtown Navy Museum.
And so the hoteliers, and they're the ones that were and it looks like those two are out, so I can mention it. And I was like, does the Roxy actually have people stay the night? And the Fairfield
Said yes.
she said, yes, actually, there's people who go to the Roxy and they want to go to a bar and they don't want to drive home. So they want to drink and have fun and they want to stay at a hotel. She said, we absolutely get people for the Roxy. The museum was brought up as one of those places that's actually part of, that people always mention it when they're staying to visit Bremerton, they always mention the Kitsap Museum, in addition to the Turner Joy, the Navy Museum, all these other places that they were actually mentioned to them as destinations.
They didn't
And the-
say no to anybody.
And the New Life Community Development Agency, that's not part of the religious organization.
No, this is Marvin Williams. This is,
It's a fundraiser.
Wait. Wait a minute.
So hang on, you're gonna have another bite at this apple on
Yeah.
the 26th.
Yeah.
during the
Okay.
Study session.
Yeah.
So-
And that's fine. And so, and I'll be a little more prepared then too, but I do appreciate all the questions because I think like a huge part of this discussion was heads and beds. And the idea that, well, we're gonna give them a shot and then they have to bring us data. Because some of these are newer ventures, some of them.
Hard to say no.
What we also did is we also reduced funding for a number of them from what they asked for last year, because a big part of our conversation was, empower them to have their own sustainable funding and don't use LTAC for their funding, right? There's the
Yeah.
2 contracts we can't control. And then the rest of them, we had that discussion. So, the other option, if you want to make different recommendations, we'll take it back. We'll have another LTAC meeting, whatever.
That's true.
And so I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to do that for council. That's what I signed up for. So,
When you looked at the Kitsap History Museum, did you think about the fact that the county LTAC cut their
Yep.
funding?
we did, actually Mike Huey from the Washington State Engineering Science State, oh
From the
geez.
STEM.
Yep, he had all that information,
Mhm.
at his fingertips. He had all the county right there.
That's great.
And every single one of these, that became the discussion. What is the count, what they received from the county? What are their other grant sources? We talked about that for a lot of these folks. Some of them don't have other grant opportunities. And so that was part of the discussion too.
Did many people at the hotels mention how excited they were about the reptile show?
All of them, everybody. I'm not even kidding. These people are nuts. No, I did mention it. I mentioned the reptile show. I mentioned they would talk about the home and garden. But
Did
they-
they put that in bed? Did the hotel here say we
They-
have a lot of people from that?
They said they did. They said there's several different
You know
events.
who's
listed.
staying there? Vendors.
Right,
Vendors. It's like the Blackberry Festival.
right.
Yeah.
Nobody comes from far away for the Blackberry Festival, but the vendors do.
Nobody ever expects the Spanish Inquisition. Is there anything on here that's wildly anomalous? Like, I was surprised not.
Anomalous.
Is there anything on here that's unexpected, something that we have not seen in previous
It's
years?
Enoch?
Bazaar, what's that?
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the Kitsap Bazaar?
Let's talk about a little bit about the Kitsap Bazaar.
Great.
She has events.
Where
and
is it?
She had, I'm about to talk.
Okay.
Jeez.
Regina?
Taylor Nicholson, I want to say. She has events all over Kitsap County, but she started the night market. And her night market actually coincides with Sunny Jack's night market. She also wants to expand to have she has in the past had a holiday craft fair at the conference center. She hosts a big one at Kiana Lodge every year, but I think there's been a year or two. Yeah, please look her up.
No, I'm gonna look up Kitsap Bazaar. I
Kitsap
don't know where it is.
Bazaar. B-A-Z-A-A-R.
I'm actually able to
There's not an
read.
actual,
My goodness gracious.
there's not an actual location. It's just her that runs it.
Ah.
Let me
there you
tell
go.
you some more. I'm not gonna keep any information on this. We're waiting for her to get her LLC in compliance. And she wants to expand, I know.
It's hard to say no.
She wants to expand to the Kitsap Conference Center. Now, what we were told in this conversation is that there are situations where people request funding, and if their paperwork's not 100%, it has to be 100% before they can even get reimbursement.
And then the money will be deferred into next year.
Yeah.
Not used this year.
So I know that she's hosted this holiday event at the conference center 2 years ago. And it did bring some vendors into town. And Denise is absolutely right. It's the vendors that stay the night. But like I said, I am completely happy to have a robust conversation and to take new recommendations back and have another committee meeting. If you guys want to reject it, I mean, I'm serious. That's no skin off my back. And I think that they would.
I think we just need tighter rules so that
I
next
agree.
year
Yeah, like
it'll be much easier to say no.
minimum gift and
And I really appreciate Jennifer Zuber's approach. She had some denials. She had some zeros on the board. And my job is not to influence this committee, right?
No, I get
My job is
facilitated very
to
well.
just facilitate and to just keep the conversation rolling. What do y'all want to do? What feels fair? I gave some of my own personal knowledge, like about the reptile shows, into the conversation, but I really tried hard not to influence, and that's, I think.
She's much better at that than I am.
Oh, I don't know. I appreciate that, but I don't know. So we'll chat again. What'd you say it was?
Next study session.
Yep, next study. Oh, I'll be gone.
2 weeks.
Oh, guess it's problematic. So can we defer it to the next study session then?
If the.
What do you want to do?
Wait a minute. Why are you gonna be, you're gonna be gone in 2 weeks?
AWs. Oh,
next
no,
week.
that's not. You're right. I'm sorry. So
Yeah.
I'll be gone next.
Yeah.
No, yeah, you're right. I'll be
Okay.
here for that. No
Okay.
problem.
I've got a,
The 26th, I'll be here.
okay, do we have time for me to ask one more question? It's 8 o'clock.
Yeah, why not?
All right, because, yeah, like, in for a penny, in for a pound. The Kitsap Chamber of Commerce, this is like typically what we give them. It was quite a disparity. It was quite a difference between, what they asked for and what they got.
I think
Oh,
what's
yeah.
happening is they're duking it out, trying to figure out who is going to be the Bremerton Tourism Management Agency.
Them or DDA.
So
Or
it's
visit?
going to be
or visit
DBA or
Kitsap.
Visit Kitsap or.
Can I
the
just,
chamber.
and what Denise is, and this is what I'd love for the ad hoc to discuss, which is a problem, is every agency wants to be the hub for the tourism, database, figurehead. What really needs to happen, and what I did suggest to the committee, I said, we can decide this now, but they didn't want to, just want to move on with this. But what really needs to happen is there needs to be a guideline for funding for who the database hub is for the tourism.
I think that in Lori Main's report, the top recommendation was to create a tourism plan, put an RFP out. That'll be used to determine who should be the big dog.
Because what is true, having been on this, and what I think that y'all will understand, what I learned through this, through being thrown into through the interview process, is that there's a lot of double dipping by these agencies of the same, not funding, but data, right? They're all counting the same data.
Yeah.
But like, whose data is it? They're all counting the same data, and that just seems.
That's
The
why
good
It's
thing is
messy,
we have three organizations that are probably capable of doing this. We just need to put the processes in place to identify.
And I
the
think
right
it would
one.
streamline things and bring them together. So anyway, that's
And
my
they
report.
get more money.
Can I end my report now?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank
The
you.
end.
Good
Because I've
job.
got some regional. Okay, let me go look. Okay, we're done talking about LTAC.
Yeah, so you have to come in.
Come on back, come on.
I've got a couple of regional committee
Sure.
dealios.
Kitsap Transit was canceled due to
Yes,
snow.
it was, which is hilarious because we were still at Super Tuesday. Or fact, yeah.
Except for the.
We were
bus
talking
that
mad
was
Wide
trash
open for
about
changes now in 2
reptiles.
weeks.
That's
So.
what- We'll brief you on the reptile shows later. All right.
Hey,
Okay.
regional.
All right, Kitsap 911, I'm constantly feel stupid at those meetings because there's so much technology that I don't understand about the radio
Yeah.
stuff. But it's, what I'm really impressed by, I don't know much about, radios and towers, and I'm learning, but I don't know. I'm trying here, y'all. But what I think is really impressive is how, the new director is really doing a great job, just kind of meeting the demands of the executive board. I missed the retreat. Neither one of us was able to go to the retreat. And it sounds like they hammered out some really great protocol. Because there's been a lot of contention.
Yeah.
And it was a big transition. And it sounds like that they really had a great retreat. And what's something that stands out to me that's really impressive is that since the last report, they've had 100% staff retention.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal.
It's a hard job.
And so I wish that I could offer you more information. I just don't always understand the technical side of things.
I know we have a big radio transition project in the works. And we're gonna be losing a staff person and hopefully, they're taking a lot of proprietary knowledge with them as they retire. And they're gonna, hire somebody, they're gonna move somebody up to train into that role. But it's a real proprietary knowledge base, so. That's all I have to say about Kitsap 911, and then I have a KRCC. Quick update. Well, yeah,
Except 911,
Yeah.
I had a,
I will try to answer it
Try
for
to
you.
keep it-
And I hate admitting publicly that I don't know things, but
No,
that's,
I remember.
I was about to say, I don't
yeah.
know all the ins and outs, but I did meet with somebody, they're Port Orchard resident, but I was meeting with Eric Warden, on their city council. And right now, Kitsap 911 uses something called Community Connect, and it lets you enter information about your residents. So they show up and, you know, you can say, I have this medical condition. So that
Okay.
first responders are aware of it. And there's another system called Smart 911. And they're similar, and this is where I'm blanking on the technical details, but there's this person that literally saved their life before in Smart 911. It's what they use in King County and some others.
Okay.
And she was asking if kids have to do that, and I did talk real briefly to the 711 director, and just, so I need to get more information on why the Smart 911 is so much better, but I don't know if that's something you consider bringing up at the next meeting. But
As opposed to, do you know,
Community Connect is the current system. I wanted to pass that on.
Yeah, I talked to the gal you met with.
Oh, okay. Oh, you did, yeah.
Just through,
They just have to
the house
find
party,
out
and she was
street.
there.
Okay.
We talked about that for good.
Oh, good, okay.
she's just, yeah, okay, I will, try to get educated on that and find it. But you said you talked to her?
And I need to touch base again and figure out the exact, you know, the
Okay.
very specifics of why Smart 911 was so much better.
Who else is on 911?
I am.
So maybe you can join me and help me.
Already on my notes.
That way I know what I'm talking about. I would appreciate the support in that. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions for 911? Because it was a really sad report and I apologize for that.
Well, they didn't give you minutes.
I've got minutes.
Have their complaint levels gone down?
Complaint levels, do you mean call volume?
The number of complaints that they have received, have those been reduced, increased?
I don't know that was, complaints about what?
About 911 itself, about, calls not going through?
I don't have anything in my notes that was ever discussed.
Okay.
You know, in the old days, I used to have to say, oh, are we about done with this? We may have to change the tape. And then that would stop the conversation.
Right.
Can't do that anymore.
Well,
But
and
we could pretend.
to be fair, I think.
Go retro.
And the meetings moved from quarterly to monthly. So, that's a new thing, right? So they've moved that way, which I think is gonna be great. Okay. Moving right along, because the tape is almost out. KRCC, I've got some basic updates, just very basic about KRCC, and I'm sure I'm gonna miss some things, but that's okay. What was that?
I'm ready to count.
Please do. A couple announcements, just announcements that were given, that I'm gonna start with these first. That there's curtain citadel shields, so there's noises around the base about, you might hear gunfire. There's basically, it's terrorism readiness. So just if your constituents are concerned about noises from the base, that is. Well, something is, yeah.
I was getting complaints about motorcycles in the base revving up in
Yeah.
the middle of the night.
Probably.
That is part of their training.
It probably is.
They
It,
have obnoxious people.
I don't know. I don't
It's like
know.
1 or 2 in the morning they're doing it.
It could be. It could be. Do we have a complaint system in place? I don't know for if there's things happening on base or, I mean, we have,
Find out.
who's our connector? Okay, send her to the mayor? And
Yeah, we have a lot of people who live near the base and complain about it.
Yep.
Thank you. I guess there's more people heading back into the office at the shipyard, so for some reason. So be prepared for increased traffic, which I absolutely have experienced. I don't know if y'all have experienced increased traffic during those key times.
And as we move into these gorse projects and people are turning back to work, a really interesting thing was, anyways, a side note is space management. They have a lot of people who were put on contract for being remote work and they don't have a desk for them. So that's Navy stuff. But KRCC stuff, I wanted to answer. You had a question you actually asked Ed about narrow lots when it comes to the ADUs.
It was about if the pre-approved ADU plans were going to fit on tiny lots, because like they have much bigger lots in most of the county.
And that was a really valid point because some of our lots are super micro. They're long and skinny. They're different shapes than like a county lot might be. Or the community what's the round lots we have in my district? Have you seen those?
Whoever okayed that?
I don't know. If you guys don't know, I have one section of gated community that's round lots. So to answer your question, there are crops. It's ridiculous.
That's what they are.
They're
the leftovers of an ancient civilization.
Must be.
Could you imagine building your fence?
Yeah. So there's still
Make you feel very.
a conversation to be had in April with the builders, and KBA is part of it. I asked who else was part of it. Somebody.
I saw that some of the pre-approved were 400 square feet.
There's some customization allowed.
But my little house that houses 3 people, 600 square feet, so 400, still big.
Yeah, there's some customization that can be allowed with those ADUs. So we have 4 approved plans. Jeff has them there, but they do have some customization available. I mean, and I don't. There's still more discussions to be had. So I just wanted to follow up on that. And it sounds like, and Jeff, do you want to highlight anything else from KRCC?
The only thing I got was the Forest Quarter project has some plans out to look at and start gathering feedback. So I think they're actively looking for public feedback.
Oh.
Then there, so sure there'll be no shortage. And then they're working to get federal funding with the stakeholders.
Yeah,
Is the
well,
bridge included?
Here's my 2 cents. With the increased traffic and the Gorse Corridor project, you would think that the federal government wouldn't have an unfunded mandate, right? Yeah.
No, but the fun part is they're doing 3 fish.
I know, yeah.
This summer.
Yeah. Is that gonna, so there's more, that's gonna be a big disruption. That's a conversation too.
People will just go around.
Oh, goodness. So we have that back route. We know we have that back route, and I think that outreach to those neighbors would be a benefit. And I know that we've had this conversation before too, but so yes, that is coming. That's all I really, and I think there was an article in the paper about the culverts recently too, right?
Uh-huh.
So we have the estimations on that. But we're still gonna go and lobby for Gorst when we go next week, right?
Can't believe it's been 75 million study.
So that is all that I have for my reports. Onward and upward. Next.
Any other regional reports?
Last one with the Affordable Housing Coalition. Probably saw the Consent Sun article from Joe Crane that they were getting close to announcing a site. I think he was quoted as 2 weeks in that article, and then right after he talked to them, there was yet one more little thing that came, nothing not a game changer, just something that adds another week or 2 to deal with. So they're working on a primary site. They're keeping backup sites in mind. Really is right on the horizon from what they're saying. In the meantime, they're still doing outreach. So Joe spoke at Anna's town hall meeting the other evening. Monday, I think.
Scheduled
Feels like weeks ago, days ago.
Every day is like a
scheduled to come to
new
James,
week.
March
Denise and I are
6th.
talking about hosting one. So that education's happening, just to again make it very clear to folks that this is not taking Salvation Army and moving it to another location. It's an entirely different model. So they're doing the education there, and they do have requests for proposals out for operators of the site. They're basically identified all the needed components, infrastructure, and have that essentially ready to pull the trigger. And I just, I want to make it clear, I've communicated, concerns on the timeline, and everyone's anxious, and they're very, very well aware of that. And all I can report is it's been working extremely hard, and like plenty of city projects, it takes longer sometimes than you want. So I am happy to communicate anything back to them, but I think Hate to say it, stay tuned another week or two.
Okay, anything else?
Got one for good of the order when we get to it.
Hang on, Tom?
Yeah, so, an item that I should have interjected when I talk about LTAC issues probably. But, you know, we had, submitted, an application for the Quincy Square, $45,000 application, a little over 11,500. And I'm not sure how that was arrived at, that dollar value, but it does leave a budget gap for, putting together the operation for Quincy Square. So I don't know if there's any ability maybe for some adjustment.
There is
try to
some
increase
opportunity
that.
for adjustment at the meeting.
If we go back to another meeting?
2 weeks from now.
If we,
And just a warning, if we talk about LTAC, we need to make sure to let these guys recuse themselves.
Yeah, they have to leave.
They left, okay. Yeah, and I think that the conversation with the members there was like, well, I think that they have funding from this place and that, they have other opportunities for funding. And so that's how that figure was,
We got a gap. We're not
Okay.
allowed to close it.
and that's good information. I mean, and, you know, like I said, I can take it for another meeting, y'all.
So no worries, and you're
Yeah.
exactly right, because if I recall correctly, if you ask for one item.
Exactly.
The whole thing's gotta
Yep.
go back. So,
It does, and that's
Right.
fine. I'm happy to do the work on that.
right,
Well, it's not like they're gonna have to remake their budgets at this point.
yeah. this is
Because, and you
long
know,
delay.
and part of that, and it's an open meeting, so it's not like I'm holding any information back, but part of it, I mean, we had additional funds after we had the recommended funding. And then they just had their own system on how they wanted to give the rest of the, give it to, because, you know, and so, and one of the conversations too is the reason they didn't award as much for Quincy Square is because they weren't sure exactly how many heads and beds, and because it was at the end of the year to be ready, that it wasn't gonna have an opportunity to bring that much LTAC funding in, because the construction wasn't gonna be finished till the end of the year. Do you know what I mean?
Actually.
It's supposed to
like
be July.
May.
I think that we thought September, October, is that's what they
No.
thought? Okay,
No. It's
All right.
gonna be honestly, like, really one of the very nice, you know, Memorial Day, right around that time. So.
We had the Blackberry Festival
it'll
there
also
instead of
probably be
the
a
water.
subcontract, right, Mike? It'll be a subcontract with an organization or an individual.
Timing, yeah, figure that out.
Maybe I
So
need
it
to
could
look
go
at
to
that.
one of those organizations.
And you know, this is also putting the first plan together, right? So we've got to figure our way through that, and we need to do a
So-
first-class job of this.
Yes.
So what I think then, if we have another LTAC meeting, we need to put it out there for people who are not happy with their funding to come and give a presentation.
You'll have everybody there.
That's fine.
That's not
Yeah, I
normally the
just don't know.
process.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
process would be city council
It's
sending it back
Yeah, yeah,
with our recommendations.
yes, we gotta follow
Okay.
up.
And then they can take it or leave it.
Okay.
No more
Yeah.
interviews or anything like that.
Okay, thank you. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Whatever is the process.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, you can come back in. But just to mess with them, once they sit down, I could say LTAC.
Yoo-hoo. They're so good.
Anything for the good of the order.
I have
I have a- one.
And it's actually not on a passion project. And Jeff, I'm really glad you're back. So for good of the order, we have been talking about all of the nonprofits that we have here who pay no property tax. We have been talking about the specific types of nonprofits that we have are a heavier than usual charge on our emergency responders. Right, like fires doing 11,000 calls. That's a lot.
Crazy.
So Jeff has, and others have regularly said, you know, this is not just a Bremerton problem, it's a national problem. And it's a county problem. And if you, I have looked, and I don't have anything to show you, but the nonprofits that are a drain on public safety are overwhelmingly located in Bremerton.
Yep.
Right, I'm not a newsflash for anybody. So rather than rail about this, I was wondering if perhaps part or all of council could arrange to attend one of the county commissioner work sessions. I believe they're on Monday mornings, and I think they have another one. And to sit down with them, or not to overwhelm them with like she had 7 against 3 or anything, but to to go and just say, here's our situation. How can we share the burden? Because, everything is comparatively pleasant on Bainbridge. Everything's comparatively pleasant in Paulsbo. And we are struggling with really basic things. So has there ever been anything like this? I was just figuring I would like talk to them at Kitsap Transit Board and see if they're interested. But I don't think they realize how very unequal the situation is, how heavily the burden falls on we who are least don't eat chips and talk. We who are least able to bear it.
They've certainly invested money in the project, but they've invested money in to place it in Bremerton.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
the nonprofit partners have received money in the deals, right?
Yes.
But there's been no conversation that I know of about supporting those projects for basic services, emergency services.
I mean, they have they do have the new shelter in Port Orchard.
Yeah.
So I want to just bring attention to that.
Michael and Eric, Eric, you remember the conversation a couple councils ago when you asked me to coordinate with our partners in the county to get services more evenly distributed, and Mile Hill was a result of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And that's the
start.
latest. Has there been another one since? I mean, Mile Hill's the latest one that's happened.
And we probably have county funding for inclement weather shelters, but that's not,
Ours is on 24/7. We count as implement.
I know, I'm saying like this distribution, that there is a small amount of distribution county, but
Still not, I mean,
two on the point.
before Mile Hill was done.
With the emergency services conversations that we're having around fire, that's an element that should be brought up, you know.
Michael wants. I was just gonna say that, not all nonprofits, who own buildings are property tax. I just learned that because we bought the Roxy and I thought I wasn't gonna pay property tax anymore.
But you do?
Well, we did for a while, and then there's like an application and it has to get certified, like they really are on us. But the main thing I want to say for these social service organizations, like that's sort of part of the deal to help them do that. But to me, the bigger solution is, can we get shelters in Port Orchard, can we get a shelter in Silverdale or Norwood and things like that. And I think there's evidence too of, if you cluster too much stuff together, it just, you want folks to like not feel that they're in some sort of area that they've all been put, that they're throughout the community and they can interact like any citizen. But
Well, it's not, I mean, it's great that they throw us $500,000 here, $500,000 there, actually construct something. But that doesn't help that we only have 64 police officers and that we don't have enough money to fully fund what it should be. And that's what we need. Like in other states, they would do development fees where you build a house, you pay this much for parks, you pay this much for fire, you pay, so that the existing residents aren't carrying the whole burden. Now, I don't know if there's some sort of thing that we could do with the county. And, we have a lot of children and brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles of people who live in Paulsbo and Bainbridge where they could help us with operational
Pretty soon we're
costs.
gonna be maxed out. We got the low barrier shelter coming in, then, they're here, they're already here.
Someone
But
asked
we
at
have
the
a
town hall,
KRCC.
like, where would it be located? And he said, it'll be in Bremerton.
There is
Of course it
Of
will be in
course.
Bremerton.
yeah, I like Jeff's idea. And by the way, I
Yeah,
don't know if
like-
you guys are feeling drained, but we're not gonna
Yeah.
solve this tonight.
But
Go ahead,
I
Jeff.
think, excellent comment. There is a standing item on KRCC on housing and homelessness every meeting. and
I'm going to bring that up.
maybe we can
our desperate need for
bring it up
funding.
to start the conversation and.
For emergency
we're not gonna
services.
Solve it on that one CRC meeting, but.
That really is the best venue. It's already in place.
Yeah.
And all the cities and the county belong to it, so that's the venue.
Bremerton would like to be prioritized those calls.
Okay, I would love if somebody
Our
could,
guys aren't gonna do.
I would love if somebody could help me with just kind of like, I want to make sure I have the proper language and information, so maybe.
Yeah.
Jeff, are you on that with me? I
Yeah,
forget.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
let's
we're on that,
work
so.
that out and I'll bring that up. Okay. You got it.
Okay, anything else for the good of the order?
For very briefly. Very briefly. I wanted to talk about LTAC real quick, just kidding. No, I'm just joking. No, I wanted to make sure, okay, I wanted to, I wanted to thank Jeff for having our reaffirmation kind of queued up to see at the next, study session, right? Like we didn't see it this time, but no, we're done with it. It's gonna come out, it's coming out, it's been
It's
released.
on our website.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, everybody. What a great working relationship. I wanted to just put it on our, I wanted to kind of get an update about we have a Pride resolution. And I wanted to find out where we were at with the condo board and maybe have an update on that, because I also am gonna just put it on your radar that I'm probably gonna see if we can do a reaffirmation of that as we get closer. So I don't know if anybody has any information on where the condo board landed with presenting the colors.
Flags during
But
June.
it's, on the agenda, to discuss, we need to work on a policy, that has not been developed. It's on the agenda for a policy for the bill to.
Okay.
on that.
And we'll have an update on that prior to,
June, yeah.
we've got, I know, well, I mean, like, you guys laugh like that's a lot of
you're right.
time.
No,
I mean, we don't keep them accountable, you know?
We did just mention that it'll be, yeah, it's.
Okay.
Yeah, priority.
All right, thank you.
We passed 7 months ago, so yeah.
I just wanted to check in. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. So a reminder, the next council meeting will be next Wednesday, February 19th, starting at 5:30 PM downstairs, Normbix Government Center. Public's invited to attend in person or remotely, but if you wish to speak during public recognition via Zoom, you must submit your request through the city clerk by calling 360-473-5323, at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. This meeting's adjourned.